Hello, everyone. Welcome again. My name is Shelley Berry, and I'm also one of the co-chairs of Independent Voices. And I want to welcome each of you to our city town hall today. So welcome. Will y'all give me right? Am I talking to? Here. Thank you. Here, let me hold the mic. We're gonna try this now. Thank you, Melinda. Today at our town hall, we will be talking about how we have trouble with human services and how we need to fight for our right for human services. The topic today probably affects all of us, okay? Illinois budget crisis continues as an agency, and we only get like 65% of the budget to for extremely delayed payments. Consumer benefits continue to be cut. No solution is found yet, as we all know, which is bad. What can we do to fix this mess? We hope that each of you can help solve this problem. And once again, thank you for coming out. Okay?
Hello, everybody. How are we doing? Hello, my name is Susan Arup, and I am also a co-chair of Independent Voices, along with Mike and Shelley. Independent Voices is an advocacy group that helps people who have escaped from nursing homes. And this is an ongoing problem, and we want to free our people from nursing homes and other institutions. First, we will hear, and then I have the honor of introducing our first two speakers. Renee Luna, who is a fantastic disability activist. He will explain the struggles that we have been having in the disability community, along with some of our history of those struggles. And they're still continuing today, especially with the budget. Then next, we're going to hear from another fantastic, wonderful community organizer who is head of the Alliance for Community Services, Fran Tobin. And he's going to talk to us about possible solutions and how we can help with the struggle. Because one of the things we need to do is raise revenue. But the Alliance is part of ADAPT, USA Action for Justice, AFSCME, Workers, Consumers, Improve, and so welcome everybody, and let's use each other's efforts to help end the struggle so we can all have solutions to the problems. Thank you for coming and being a part of our awesome town hall.
Okay, thank you, Susan. I know we're going to have Fran step up here, but I just wanted to let people know we have English to Spanish translation, and we have equipment, and they're back here in the corner. If anybody needs that translation, please see these two wonderful women that are helping us translate. Yes.
Hello.
Buenas tardes. Si alguien necesita equipo para traducir, nosotros tenemos el equipo allá, mi compañera Olivia o yo lo estamos distribuyendo. Por favor, alcen la mano y nosotros lo traemos a donde están ustedes.
Hi, my name is Karen Boyd. You will hear from me a little bit later on in the program, but I would like to announce that we do have two wonderful PAs today, Melinda and Garland. Can y'all please raise your hands so that we know, so that they know who you are? And the washrooms are located out the door down the hall. If you need any, right next to it. If you need any assistance, Garland and Melinda are here to assist you. Thank you and have a great day.
All right, well, it's good to be here. How is everybody? Good, good. I want to put some of what we're doing here today into context. So I'm going to talk a little bit about history. Back in the 1960s, there was a guy named Max Starkloff. Does anybody know who he is? I know Susan does. I think Susan met him. He was from St. Louis. He was injured in a car accident during that time. And, he was spinal cord injured. And he saw that he did not want to live in a nursing home. But he also saw how difficult it would be to live integrated in the community. So one of the things he did is that he worked with people who had contacts he had there in St. Louis, people who had power and were wealthy business people. And he helped to start a housing development. And he intended it for people to live independently so that disabled people wouldn't have to go into nursing homes. It was a great idea. Remember, this is the 1960s. At the same time, does anybody know who Ed Roberts is? Most people know who Ed Roberts is, right? So Ed Roberts was in Berkeley, also starting independent living philosophy, and he said, we have to break away from that medical model. We can't let doctors dictate what we do. We have to take our own control, and we have to develop our own power. Use the power that we have to be able to live independently, to develop all of the resources that we need, the housing, the personal assistance, the transportation, everything. It was vital. Also, later on, we had the Rehabilitation Act that was signed in 1973. Does anybody know who signed that, by the way? That's right, President Nixon. So he's not the most friendliest person, the most liberal person to us, but he signed it even though he signed it reluctantly, he said. And one of the things he said is he didn't want to sign the law. He was hesitant because he didn't want to create high expectations among handicapped people, he said. Okay, that's the lingo of the time. But remember, if we don't have expectations for anybody, they're likely not going to do very much. We're not going to challenge people. Nevertheless, people organized the first independent living centers that were funded in 1978. Also, in the 70s, somebody named Wade Blank. Does anybody know who Wade Blank is? One of the founders of ADAPT, National ADAPT. He saw in the Denver area that the buses did not have lifts on them. Ronald Reagan was president by 1980, and even though the Rehabilitation Act said that public agencies had to provide accessibility, the buses were not accessible. And you know why that is? Because he relied on a thing called local option, so that it sounds similar to what state rights used to be. Anybody remember what state rights were? People, yeah, Rob? when there was segregation, racial prejudice and discrimination, it was states' rights, right? Mississippi, Alabama had the rights to do whatever they wanted. It wasn't until the federal government intervened and said we have to stop this Jim Crow legislation. Well, what Reagan did is he gave the transit agencies the local option to choose whether to be integrated, to have accessible mainline transit, or to provide paratransit. We said here in Chicago, we want both. We want access to mainline transit. And remember in the 1980s, Chicago Adapt organized, and we got lift-equipped buses in 1988, right? It was a big victory. And then when the ADA came around, 2 years later, it granted us both paratransit and door-to-doors, and mainline access, not only to the buses, but to the trains. And that was very important. So we all organized to get the ADA passed. Whenever we've organized, we've been successful. When we unite as a community, we tear down the barriers. We tear down the attitudinal barriers and the environmental barriers, right? The ADA also says that Title III, the areas of public accommodations need to be accessible, and we fight to make buildings accessible. Theaters, restaurants, daycare centers, schools have to be accessible. Well, as we've been fighting for our civil rights, we've also been fighting for independent living. So part of what we've done over the last 25, 30 years or more is that we fought along two tracks. One is for equal rights and integration, and the other one is for independent living. Having the housing and having the resources that we need to live in the community and living integrated in the community. So that's what we've been struggling for. We've been successful here at Access Living in helping people get out of nursing homes. Remember, the Olmstead Act requires that services be provided in integrated settings, the most integrated setting. So through Olmstead Supreme Court ruling, we help people get out. We've had court settlements to get people with mental health issues, people with developmental disabilities, people with physical disabilities out of segregated nursing homes, or what might otherwise call prisons for people with disabilities. So what now, though? What happens when we integrate people, when we get them out of the institutions? When we get people out of prisons, you know what non-disabled people do when they get out, an ex-offender? We develop community programs around them to help them reintegrate, not only into the housing, but into jobs and into business development. We don't do that very much with the disability community. Out of all the hundreds of people that we've gotten out of nursing homes, some of you, maybe some of those people, what are we doing to help you get jobs? Well, this is part of independent living, but this is also part of equal rights. When we talk about equal rights, we just can't talk about rights to services. We have to be fully included in the community. If you're living on poverty, it's going to be hard to go to the restaurants, to the theaters, to the places where we need to go to have fun. If we don't have some money in our pocket, it's hard. So that's our challenge, to fight poverty. To fight poverty. The disability community needs to step up and organize and unite around the issue of poverty, because poverty affects all of us. It doesn't matter whether you have a physical disability, a sensory disability, cognitive disability, or mental health. It affects all of us. That's a big barrier.
And even if you're employed.
And even if you're employed, people are getting very sub-minimum wages. We're trying to eliminate sub-minimum wage. We have employment first legislation in this state, and about another 28 states or more have employment first, so that we're moving the agencies away from segregated, sheltered workshops. So those are good things. But where are the plans to integrate us economically? Where are the plans to develop jobs for people with disabilities? We have a task force that was created by one of our champions out in Springfield. We've done a great job in the past 25 years, at least, in going down to Springfield and educating members of the General Assembly about our issues, about home services, about the need for independent living, about getting out of nursing homes and developing the funding for that. We fought alongside with our brothers and sisters in SEIU, Service Employees International Union. I remember back, we did a protest at the State of Illinois building in about 1993, and a PA was getting paid how much? Michael Grice, you remember?
It was like $3-something.
$3.15. And now it's up to $13.50, should be $15, except for the governor, right? So we're struggling. In some ways, things have gotten better. In a lot of ways, things have gotten worse, especially now. And I think Fran's going to be able to talk about why we've had some of these inequalities, this great gap between the wealthy and the poor, and how the middle class has diminished as well. So all of this is to say that it's not until we unite around issues that we get things done. But if we're not united around economic issues, we're going to be left further behind. Because every time a building goes up, every time a new business is developed, every time jobs are created, and we're not at the table, we're not organized and saying, where's our fair share? We're not going to get it. That's what every other community does. If you look at the trajectory of the women's community, if you look at the trajectory of the African American community, the Latino community, the Asian community, and look at it at the LGBT community, they've all carved out an economic interest. That's right, nothing about us without us, getting us to the table. Look at what's happened in the Boys Town area, what we call Boys Town, right? Up near Halstead and Belmont, that whole area, Andersonville. A lot of businesses owned by gay and lesbian people. How many businesses are owned by people with disabilities in this city? Probably more than that, I hope. But we need to start more. But I don't mean the kind of business where everybody's out to make their own profit. That's part of the problem. Fran will talk about that. I'm talking about us working collectively. You know what? Access Living is a collective of disabled people. It's run by a majority of the board as people with disabilities. That's a collective. That's collective ownership. But we haven't taken that to the next level. We're trying. We're just bogged down because of Springfield. We have a governor who says he wants to develop businesses, and he doesn't want to tax the wealthy. He says he wants to make it create less rules, less regulations for businesses. At the same time, he wants to create more rules for us. At the same time, while he wants to cut taxes, he doesn't bring in the revenue for the services that we need. The whole emphasis is on individualism. That's what capitalism does. It divides us based on our own personal self-interest and our own individual needs. But what about our collective needs? we have a broader economic need, and that's getting out of poverty and being integrated and included. And we know there's some people may never be able to have a job, okay? But that's because we have a false consciousness about that. We say some people are unable to work because all we do is we look at their limitation. We look at what they can't do, but we don't inquire and really talk to people about their assets, about what they're capable of doing. Everybody around here has some talent, some skills, something that we can contribute. The society and the economy exclude us. We have to take matters into our own control, into our own power, and organize and create our own ownership, our own programs for economic development. And I think all of you know that the struggle in Springfield is important, and we go down there and we advocate, we educate, we protest, we make our demands, and that's powerful stuff. But we need to organize along these other fronts and unite and continue to dialogue about these things. But we have to be united, okay? So that's about all. I think Fran's going to talk more about the why these things are happening and what exactly is happening with the budget. So that's kind of my spiel today. Stay organized.
Thank you, Renee. I can turn this on. So I'm going to use some pictures, so I hope folks can see. Maybe dim the lights a little bit if folks have an angle. Because, you know, pictures. I like pictures. Well, okay, they might be a little dirty. I don't know. I think we have a pretty dirty governor, actually. So that's just my personal opinion. So thank you, Renee, reminding us of the long-term struggles that folks with disabilities have gone through in organizing and challenging power and lack of decency by people in authority in order to win the things that we've gotten. Without that struggle, we wouldn't have those things. I'm glad to have known Renee for many years and worked with Renee and Michael and Gloria and Larry and other folks way back forcing Metra to change, forcing CTA to change, a lot of these other things. So I believe, well, first, as Renee mentioned, I coordinate a coalition called the Alliance for Community Services. And so in the Alliance, we believe that the people in this room are experts. And we need more of the experts telling the decision makers what to do. Nothing about us without us, right? So I'm not here to talk specifically about a lot of the details of the harms that are being done. People here, you know that. I'm here to listen to you about that, to figure out how do we do the organizing to win what we need. I'm going to talk a little bit about the context. In the last, There we go. In the last couple of years, there's been a lot of talk about the budget and what we need in a budget, but it's a lot of the conversation seems to be taking the budget as though it was something that exists outside of the rest of the economy, outside of the rest of society. But what we tax, how much we tax, what we spend, how much we spend, where we spend, that is all integrated into the economy. So before we talk about the budget specifically, we need to talk about the context. So first, when we think about the state budget, about 91% of the state budget goes for things that, for the most part, we think are good things, right? We would quibble about some of the particulars of some of those dollars, right? But the reason every time there's a budget crisis, there's a human service crisis, is because that's where most of the money is. So any budget shortfall, any problem in our budget hits us first and foremost in the state, because that's where the money is. Now, a lot of us have been feeling squeezed for a while, and there's a reason. It's because we have been. So this chart, how does that look? This is the change in funding for human services in Illinois over the last 12 or so years. Look good? right? So let me see, though, absolutely. So this is a problem. This is compared to 2002. So anybody remember a governor named George Ryan? One of our incarcerated governors? Well, in 2002, George Ryan was the governor, and if we had the same level of spending on human services as when George Ryan was governor in 2002, this number wouldn't be negative $8 billion, it would be, zero. So this is the comparison. So since Ryan, we have systematically been reducing the amount of resources from our state into human services, bit by bit by bit. Now, here's the other thing that's noteworthy. Notice the last year on this chart was actually fiscal year 2013. So this isn't even under the Rauner administration. This isn't the last year and a half of budget disasters. This is before that. So they're piling on to already a long-standing pattern of diminishing support for human services. That's why we're in a crisis. That's why it is a bipartisan problem. It's not a one side good, the other side bad. It's about people with disabilities, people with needs, people who deserve dignity not getting what they deserve. And it's long-standing. So of course, with this consistent cutback to the resources available, what do? Well, they cut services. They privatize. We call it profitization, not privatization, because that's really what it's about. They always say, oh, it's going to improve services, it's going to do a lot of other things, but for the most part, companies, for-profit companies like Maximus, and they don't actually increase services. They're basically being paid to keep people from getting Medicaid benefits. That's really what their job is. So in the context of why we have the crisis, though, in the first place, we need to look at the broader economy. So first, of course, rampant inequality. When we look at we could look at that again. It's a good one. Yeah, it's like, well, we got half. I mean, what's the rest of it?
The cartoon?
Yeah. It's like, what? Hey, I mean, we got. But this fact, which most of us know, but I think we don't sort of, in our guts, fully understand the degree to which inequality of the economy, not just the budget, but is driving all of this. And if we don't address basic inequality and basic economic justice, we can't address budget justice. So if we look at the economy, the blue line is the change in per capita GDP, so it's basically economic growth, which goes some up and down, but it's mostly up. So the economy as a whole is growing, more stuff, more wealth. The red line is median household income, so what's not keeping up with the total growth. So there's more stuff, there's more wealth, there's more GDP, but there aren't more wages. People have actually lost ground. So where does the wealth go? Overwhelmingly, the wealth went to the richest 1% of our state, of our country, and it's global as well. So the red line, that's the portion of national income in the states for the richest 1% of the people. Here in Illinois, over the past 13 years, our GDP per capita has gone up by 5%, while median incomes have gone down by 11%. We're losing ground while the economy is growing. So there's more stuff, more wealth. People know about the 2008 meltdown, right? It was Wall Street driven, blah, 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 credit default swaps and derivatives and yada, yada, right? So we have a recovery, right? Ask any of the economists. We're in a recovery for some. So in Illinois, if you look at who's benefited from the recovery, the total growth in income since the recovery, not sort of going back the last 10 years when people were already losing ground, of the total income growth in Illinois, 97% of all the income growth went to the richest 1% of people in our state. That's right. 97 cents out of every dollar of recovery went to the people that were already the richest. And even within that, when we look at the economy, who is it that's gaining the most?
Griffin.
The finance sector. So banks, flash traders, hedge funds, those guys, the same people that caused the crash in 2008, they're getting most of the benefits now. So this is a comparison of salaries. So the financial sector, people in finance, those big banks and flash traders and all that, versus the other sectors of the economy. So they're actually getting more of the benefit. So somebody said a name. Who knows who that guy is? Ken Griffin, that's right. Who is Ken Griffin? Tell me about him. Yeah, he's a hedge fund dude. He's a flash trader. He's one of those, they do microsecond trades, computer-driven, richest guy in the state. Because he was getting divorced, we know a lot more about his finances than otherwise we would. So here's what we know about Ken Griffin. He is the largest donor to Bruce Rauner, richest dude in the state. He makes $90,000 an hour. And in general, the finance sector, as a sector, they provide about 4% of the jobs in the country, but they get about 30% of the profits. So what happens when you have not only the 1%, but a subsection of the 1% dominating all of the wealth of the economy? Well, they have all this extra cash. So what do they do with it? They buy themselves politicians. That's what they do. Now, in that context, we not only have those people getting most of the benefits out of the economic system, but we have who is actually paying. So in our state, if you look at all the taxes, local real estate taxes, state income taxes, property taxes, when you look at what people are paying for the public good compared to their income, the richest people in our state actually pay a lower percentage of their income than the poorest people.
That's not fair.
So that, again, in order to understand the budget crisis, we have to look at the broader economy. We have a growing economy. The vast majority of the benefits are going to the top, and yet they're actually paying less to support the very system that is enriching them. So what happens when there's still demands for services, there's demand for infrastructure, there's demand for stuff, but there's no money coming in because the people who have the money aren't paying it? What happens? Debt, right? So they float bonds, they borrow, they do all kinds of stuff in order to say, hey, look, we're delivering some services, we're doing this, we're doing that, right? So across the country, local governments, state governments, school districts, mounting debt. They're more and more in debt. Well, so debt comes from somewhere. Where does the debt come from? Well, part of it comes from pension funds and workers. So our state, the main reason that we have a pension crisis of public employees is because the state has been borrowing from the pension funds. So that's one of the sources of that borrowing. The bigger source comes from banks. So again, the same players, the finance sector, the traders, the big banks, the same people that created the crisis are cashing in because they're lending us the money to operate and then getting the interest out of it, and then they're doing these so-called toxic interest rate swaps. Just in Illinois, the banks have already gotten about $500 million in straight profits out of these interest rate swaps. They're expected about another $400 and some million in profits. Come on, you can do it. So there's another way that these same folks are actually cashing in on our trouble. So people know who Jim Edgar is, right? He used to be a governor. Many people think he's one of the kind of good guy governors of the Republicans among, whatever. So he's not the only one, but he and a Democrat, former Congress member, Democrat, are partners in a firm that's one of several that are sort of like the payday loan industry of the big shots. So the state won't pay the bills. They're paying the swap profits. So the banks, just to be clear, not a single swap payment to the banks has ever been late. So while the state has not paid employee health care premiums for their own employees, and has not paid contracts to social service agencies, they're paying the banks. So that cash is going. But over the last, I should also say, Edgar, when he announced this deal, said, we're doing this in order to protect the agencies and protect these vendors because, people are hurting. And so they're cutting a deal where, okay, they're in debt, so they're going to front part of the money to some of the social service agencies and other vendors. And in exchange, they're going to get part of the money and the late fees. Well, and they say, oh, it's just to protect the vendors. Well, this is big business. So this is the amount of late fees that we're actually paying out in our state because we don't have a fair budget, because we're not having the people that have the resources pay. So they say it's for the vendors, and yet, oh, look, there's $300 million a couple years ago that were paid out in late fees. That's not small change. So just like payday lenders who look for people who are desperate and then charge interest on the desperate in order to get themselves rich, these guys are actually cashing in on the fact that our social service providers aren't getting paid. And that's some of the system we have here. So that's who benefits. Now, who actually pays? Well, this is only a subset, but just as an example, over the period from 1990 to 2005, property taxes, again, this is in Illinois, went up by 49%, while median incomes went up by 2.7%. So again, folks in the middle are getting additionally burdened already. And then in the last few years, property taxes went up 6%, while median incomes, as we saw, actually declined. So the point is, people that are basically in the middle are already being squeezed, and we saw from the same chart as before, when you look at the combination of all tax sources, property tax, income tax, sales tax, again, the low income and middle income people are actually paying a higher proportion of the burden. So, stopgap budget. Everybody heard about that, right? What's wrong with the stopgap budget? Who can tell me?
It's a band-aid.
The organizations and like the vendors won't get all the money.
Yeah.
They're gonna fall through the gap.
Yeah, that's right. Anybody else?
Friend. It's a band-aid.
It's a Band-Aid. Yeah.
It's not even
They say stopgap is supposed to actually stop the gap. Problem with this stopgap, it actually doesn't stop the gap. So the positive was that there are people who are spending money under contract are going to have some cash, but as you noted, not everything they're owed. They're going to get a partial payment, which, for a lot of folks, that's better than nothing. On the other hand, it doesn't add new revenue. It doesn't cover those expenses. It just means we're going to be further in debt. So according to Leslie Munger, our treasurer, by the end of this fiscal year, under the stopgap budget, we're going to have a $7 billion deficit, and the backlog of unpaid bills, further things that we will owe, further debts on which we'll pay late fees that will benefit Jim Edgar and those guys, is going to be $10 billion without additional revenue. So if you look at the, thank you. So if you look at the debts, that debt, just of that backlog, that amounts to over $2,000 per household in the state of Illinois. So we hear a lot about tough decisions. We hear a lot about, we're in tough times. We're ready to make some tough decisions. So I think these guys, they're ready to make tough decisions. I think the point that we would make is that to these guys, the tough decisions are actually the ones we want them to make. The easy decision is to close schools, to cut services, to cut Medicaid, to bust unions. You wanted to add something? That's right. And it's stacking up piece by piece by piece. And then again, the folks that are wired and that are connected are able to find a way to actually cash in on the fact that we have these debts. So what we want to do is, how do we actually get those guys to make a real tough decision, which is to stand up to the 1%, to stand up to the financial industry, to tell Ken Griffin, it's about time you paid your share. So there's a few things, very briefly, this can be longer conversation another time, but a few things that are particularly being pushed. First is a graduated rate income tax, sometimes called a fair tax. Under that system, higher incomes pay a higher tax rate on their income. We don't have that in Illinois. The downside in Illinois is that it requires a constitutional amendment. The legislature failed to put that question on a ballot, so in order to win it, we would first have to put the question on the ballot, the voters would have to approve it to change the Constitution, and then we could establish a graduated income tax rate. But that could generate, depending on the rate, $2 to $5 billion a year. The second main thing we're talking about is a tax on LaSalle Street financial transactions. This is something that would make Ken Griffin and his people pay a lot. That could generate about $10 billion. Right now, I literally pay more sales tax when I bought these sandals than Ken Griffin does on $1 million derivative. I don't think that's fair. So, closing corporate loopholes. There's a couple of bills and proposals. There are a whole series of different corporate loopholes that could generate about $2.5 billion in revenue to fund what we need. Right now, about 2/3 of large corporations pay zero corporate income tax in Illinois. The last thing that's on the list is ending toxic swap profits. So I mentioned that. The basic thing is that right now, our state pays out about $68 million a year in pure profits to the banks out of these swap deals. And as I said, they've never been made late in getting paid. There's also a deal that they wrote into these provisions that if they try to get out of it in certain circumstances and the state's credit rating, because the state's credit rating is downgraded, which of course is because of the lack of them getting a fair budget. So they're creating a condition that could actually mean that the state would have to pay about $870 million to the same banks that have been profiting all along. So obviously, overall, we need to be organizing. We need to fight for consumers and workers for decency. We want to have fair rules for overtime, for appeals, for home care. We want full funding of human services, decent and accessible offices. So, as Renee was saying, we won what we've won by organizing. We need to keep on, there you are. We need to keep on organizing. So I'm glad to be here with everybody today. You're also invited. There's going to be another gathering on August the 13th. There are flyers out there. Folks are most welcome to come. And thanks for letting me have a chance to be part of this.
I would like to call on Larry Biondi.
No need to, let's get the technical part here. Well, let's try that one. Right here?
Yeah. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be on this panel. I'd like to thank Tom Wilson for inviting me to speak.
Okay, thank you, Larry, for coming.
My name is Larry Biondi. I am a long-time disability rights activist. I'm also a member of Chicago Adapt. It's an ICETO have a victory once in a while. Governor Rauner's backing off the state's overtime policy for our personal assistance is a huge victory because we have been advocating against this policy for months now. Let's give ourselves a hand.
Yeah.
Very big victory.
It's a very big victory, Larry says.
But Tremedy, Governor Rauner won't back down on this issue, as he has shown in the past 18 months. I'm sure Tom will talk about our next steps later, besides our protest next Tuesday at 2 p.m. at the Thompson Center. As Mike price. I've been involved in fighting the good fight for 25 years now. I can honestly say that our rights, people with disabilities, are being assaulted. I haven't witnessed anything like this. I understand that we've got a major problem with funding being cut to our social service, which keeps us alive. I know that. But our biggest problem, in my opinion, is that we don't have control over our personal assistance. So I react in a negative way. As well as everybody in this room who uses personal assistance. I hate to say this, but consumer control is being eroded in the independent living movement. In fact, I just wrote an article about it. Anyway, a prime example of this erosion is the new and utterly ridiculous overtime policy implemented. The state is trying to implement. The state? Why should Mike P. get penalized by receiving a warning letter if his working hours exceeds 40 hours a week? I should have the right. We all should have the right as employers to see to it that our personal assistants get paid overtime if they work it. After all, we hire and fire our personal assistants. I mean, let's be fair to our workers. My personal assistant is a reliable, dependable, trustworthy, and a hard worker. If he receives 2 more letters from the state, the Department of Human Services will terminate my P against my will. I won't stand for it, nor consumers who are in my situation. We must be organized and fight this injustice. We must use our anger in a productive way. I'd like to talk about why Governor Rauner backtracked on the overtime policy. With the help from SPIPU, we were going to file a lawsuit against Secretary Jim Dimas of the Department of Human Services. But late Wednesday, the court ruled that Illinois didn't follow proper procedure before implementing this policy. Before the state can implement a new policy. Public comments must be heard by the committee called the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules. Or J-CAR, the state failed to. So this surprise. This committee is made up of state legislators, both Republicans and Democrats. The committee must hold public forums across the state. We need all of you to attend these forums and testify. Some of you legislators might be on J-CAR. I know Tom will let you know which legislators are on this committee. Another injustice that happened last week was Governor Rauner vetoed the determination of its score bill for the home service program and the community care program for senior citizens. This bill would have banned Governor Rauner from increasing the DUN score from 29 points to 37 points. The DUN scores an instrument that determines if a person is eligible for the home services program and the community care program. Now, as you might remember, Governor Rauner wanted to increase the DUN score from 29 points to 37 points. This increase would endanger people with disabilities and senior citizens from going into nursing homes. Now, do we want that? So, this is yet another advocacy issue that we must monitor. In closing, I'd like to say the phrase, "nothing about us without us," could not be more applicable. We must be at the table when awful decisions are being made for us.
Thank you, Larry. Now I would like to introduce you, Mike Rice.
Hello, my name is Mike Grace. I have been on and off the home service program since 1983. I've been in a series of nursing homes. I transitioned in 2014 into my own apartment out of a nursing home. And at that time, I hired 4 PAs. And everything went well for the first year, basically. But earlier this year, I got a call from my coordinator in Springfield that I had too many personal care assistants. So he told me I had to downsize, which I did. I downsized to 3. And I know that was going to cause my hours to have problems. So one of my PAs, couple months later, got a letter from Doors. Mind you, she only went over about an hour and a half. I was fine with the first letter. We took care of that problem as far as her not going over hours. But then, like 2.5 months later, my other PA gets a letter, says that you've gone over. And the reason my second PA received a letter, the warning letter, was she had another consumer that she was working for, and she was working for me at the same time, but not that many hours. But it didn't matter to Doors how many hours she worked. So, and like 2 weeks ago, my second PA got the second letter. And the second letter said that this is your second warning. And we really advise you not to go over. So she ultimately dropped off my case. So now I'm down to 3 PAs. And I'm here to tell anybody that has a PA. And I get 8.5 hours a day, 7 days a week. But once you do the math, that doesn't really come out to be a lot of hours. It actually comes out to be about 60 hours a week. And I'm in that category where I'm in danger of DHS saying, Mike, you can go back to a nursing home. And I know I'm not the only consumer that's received those nasty warning letters. So, like Larry said, we must do whatever we need to do, and we have done it as far as going to Springfield, talking to our legislators, writing our legislators, faxing our legislators, and testifying at various hearings around this awful policy that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. If it wasn't for my PA, I wouldn't be here today. I need my PA to help me bathe, cook, and clean my apartment because they are an extension of me. They do the things that I cannot physically do for myself. Next Tuesday, there's at the Thompson Center at 2 p.m., there's gonna be action all around we're going to deliver a letter to the governor, and Chewy, I hope you're going to be there, because this is the time we could use you again. Yeah. Thank you very much.
I would now like to introduce you to my left, Antonio.
Thank you guys so much for coming. Should I stand or should I stay seated? Which one would you guys like me to do? Okay, all right. Seated it is. Yeah, I'm not a standing kind of person. So I'm going to be talking about the Deaf Literacy Program. The Deaf Literacy Program is really my passion because so many deaf people are unable to read. The hearing community doesn't really understand because growing up deaf using sign language, if you grow up deaf using sign language as your primary mode of communication, I'll give an example. So now there needs to be more education, and most people need to go to college or university. And to be able to go to college or university, they have to have interpreters. But really, the best way is to learn from a deaf teacher. Because when a hearing person is speaking and an interpreter is interpreting what they're saying, deaf people are not getting the entire message. what we really need to do is we need to force all colleges to hire deaf instructors and deaf faculty. They hire Spanish-speaking teachers. They hire teachers from the Black community. They're hiring people who speak Chinese. So why can they not hire deaf instructors? We don't understand when a deaf person wants something. When a deaf person wants something, they have to go to the Social Security office, and you have to go to them and tell them what you want. And this is what it looks like. It's hard to understand. And I don't understand, are they talking to me? Who are they talking to? And I had to tell them, hold on 1 second. And then I have to write down what I want, or that I'm deaf. And you have to write back and forth, hand the paper. And for some reason, the hearing culture always has an attitude when they're forced to interact with a deaf individual who has a need that's different from their own. If it were a Chinese-speaking person or a person who speaks Spanish, they would try to find somebody quickly who understands and try to get the communication done. They would find somebody who speaks Spanish. It wouldn't be a problem. So really, I advocate for deaf people to be more motivated to learn how to read, how to express themselves. If you need to write down on a piece of paper, that's fine, but trying to force a deaf person to understand using that communication mode is taking advantage of them, because there's no adequate and effective communication. So any other community can voice their grievances and say what their problems are. So if they're having a problem, they would get somebody to communicate their issue. But if a deaf person is trying to communicate, they're met with a barrier. And we don't like that. We would like deaf people to be able to communicate with hearing people. Instead of saying, oh, well, so they would say, I don't know how to communicate with that person, and there would be an alternative. It's all about one-on-one communication, how to foster and support that communication without any sort of a breakdown. And that's what I want to see happen. Oh, okay, all right, I need to wrap up. Thank you for timing me. I was gonna go on forever. So this would mean when a person is communicating, and for example, if I'm signing and there would be somebody who could communicate with me directly, is what I would prefer. Instead of standing there trying to watch for any visual cues and, oh, I like that the person told me to stop instead of just letting me go on. So in closing, I would like deaf people to have the same fair support and rights as all of the people in the world. And I am going to be here until that day comes, until the day I die. Because I am not going to let deaf people be oppressed. And so when they come to me, I am going to we are going to overcome this problem. All right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, time's up. Okay.
Thank you very much. Next, I would like to introduce Chuy Capizano. Yeah, I know you thought I couldn't pronounce your last name.
Are you sure it's not Garcia? Funny. First of all, how's everyone doing today?
Hi.
Woo. Let me tell you a little bit. Let me tell you a little bit about my day today. It has been crazy, literally crazy. When I mean crazy, I mean when you have shootings going outside your window from your house, from your apartment building, it's messed up. It is really messed up. I want to say it in other words, but I'm gonna refrain from using that language. I usually do. But what I'm talking about is the need for more mental health clinics in the city of Chicago. In 2012, and actually I would prefer that one of my friends come up here and he can talk about it more. Ronald Jackson, Cowboy. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. In 2012, 6 out of the 12 mental health clinics closed here in the city of Chicago. That was very, very, very sad when they closed, because many people, let's just say it, they lost their services. Many people got lost in the system, and I'm afraid to say it, that some people are still lost in the system. Right now, as I see it, the need for mental health, the need for services, the need to protect independent living and the disability community is very big. Because the disability community and the independent living community is always being under attack. It's always being under attack. With the budget cuts that we have, and this Band-Aid that they put as a budget, don't you think that next year they're gonna cut even more services? I mean, we would hope not, but I'm just gonna put it out there. This budget that passed was just a Band-Aid, which means, like Fran said, in January, more services will be cut. So what do we have to do? What do we have to do? Do we have to sit around, or do we have to fight back?
Fight back.
We have to fight back. We have to fight back because our living environment, our communities are being under attack. When it comes to education, mental health, human services, they all revolves in one circle. Everything revolves in one circle. And unless we don't stand up and fight back, we're always going to be under attack. Oh, I got 2 minutes now? Oh, okay. 2 minutos. Okay. Dos. So, in conclusion, guys, how do you think we should fight back? This is something that you have to think about. We need to think about and come together in a panel discussion and discuss how we're gonna fight back. I told Tom I was gonna do this. Now I'm gonna introduce my awesome friend who's sitting next to me, Kathy Powers, and here she goes.
I want to talk about what I think of as mental illness. And I think that mental illness is a total fear state. People who have mental illness are afraid of the world, they're afraid of themselves, and the world is afraid of them. Now, why is that, do you think? I've never heard about mental illness being contagious, but people don't want to think about it, they don't want to talk about it, and nobody accepts responsibility to take care of the situation, to give services. That is why I call this the attack of silence on mental illness. Stigma, which exists since time immemorial, is always present. Mass media attacks us. Every time there's a shooting, they say, oh, well, you know, it's because the person has mental illness. They don't talk about what it's like.
That's an insult. That's a total insult.
Yes, it is, Donna. Yes, it is. It happens every day now. And people are becoming more stressed, like my friend Chewy here with the shootings in the street.
I have a mental illness, and I'm not afraid to share it. It's major depression.
Well, I hope I don't catch it. The biggest problem about mental illness is the lack of communication between people who have symptoms and the people who are supposed to take care of them, and the irresponsibility of the powers that be to take care of them. We have problems. We are attacked by our own advocates. We have advocates in the nonprofit sector who are funded by kissing big pharma's butt, payoffs by insurance companies, and they don't want a public direct mental health service to succeed, which is crazy, because that's crazy. Now that's crazy. I know what crazy is when I see it. They want us to disappear. People don't like to see people who are disabled. They want to warehouse us in nursing homes, no different than physical illnesses. In fact, mental illness is in fact a physical illness. I just want to bring that up because I think it's understated. Social Security Administration, the big system in the United States, has denial after denial of disability protection because it's all in your head. You know, you don't know your butt from a hole in the ground. They're afraid that there's so many people that they're going to be overwhelmed with costs. And in fact, they're kind of right about that, because the statistics are that either, depending on what study you look at, 1 in 5 or 1 in 4 Americans are going to have mental illness actually enter their lives, either personally or with their families or with their friends. That's 20 to 25% of the population is going to experience mental illness in some way. The mental health movement in Chicago is trying to reopen the centers that were closed. The city wants to ditch it, and it has in fact actually had some of our advocates go out and issue reports without any of our input. That don't ask the people what they need, because we're crazy and we don't know what we need, and we just we're just so incompetent that we just can't even be dealt with. Now, I've been told some of our actual service providers are people who are supposed to be in our corner. Tell us what our limitations are. Oh, well, you're never going to be able to, really work out in the. This is after if you actually are. Yeah, they don't expect you to do anything but sit in a nursing home and disappear, or walk into the lake and disappear. And some of us would be happy to do that. Let me tell you. We are attacked. This is not just in the United States. This is worldwide. And we, as Tui says, we have to fight back, and we don't have a lot of resources. We need help. I want to talk about that in the sessions. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. Can I get a round of applause for my entire panel?
Okay.
You guys did a great job. Up next is Kathleen O'Brien.
Yeah, and before Kathleen, I just wanted to make an announcement or two. Because we started late and we're probably running a little late, people should help themselves to the snacks and stuff. I think we're going to shorten the break because we have to. And the Allies panel should come up right now, and Kathleen is going to be facilitating that. So if you're on the Allies panel, please come to the front. Thank you.
Okay, guys, we're gonna get started. I have a really loud voice without the microphone, so I'm hoping that this is okay. We at Access Living, our many advocacy groups do a lot of great work to fight back against the problems that our consumers just talked about, but we certainly don't do it alone. And so on this panel, we want you to get to know some of our allies, and because they all are wonderful, I'm gonna let them speak for themselves. And if all of you could use the microphone and let us know where you're from and your name, that'd be great.
My name is Joyce Bell. I'm from One North Side, and I'm also part of SHI, which is Chicago Housing Initiative.
I'm Vivian Zoe. I'm also part of One North Side and Chicago Housing Initiative.
Ann Sheets, Illinois Single Payer Coalition.
I'm Michelle Garcia. I'm the Latino community organizer here at Access Living.
I'm sorry, will you talk real fast? Would you repeat that, please?
Sorry. I'm Michelle Garcia. I'm the Latino community organizer here at Access Living.
Hi, I'm Susan Magacy. I'm from the University of Illinois and also from the Chicago Cancer Health Equity Collaborative.
I'm Sarah Haynes. I'm from Chicago Teachers Union.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jackie Rodriguez, and I'm with the labor union SEIU.
And I think each of you has a great thing to tell us about the kind of work you do and how that helps us in advocacy and helps us fight back against the problems presented to people with disabilities. So who wants to go first? You want to start?
Thank you. Again, my name is Joyce Bell, and I'll give you a little bit of background about myself. I'm involved with One North Side, and my initial involvement with One North Side came a couple of years ago when I was actually homeless and going through a number of different issues. I have disabilities, financial problems, a lot of stuff, looking for housing. And eventually, it led me to One North Side, and from One North Side, I got to SHI. But with One North Side, we found that on the north side of Chicago, there are a number of agencies and groups that work and help people in the communities to address the needs and concerns that they have. Mine initially was housing, and it still is, which I'm working towards. And with the Chicago Housing Initiative, it's a collaboration of people from all around the city of Chicago. We work for everyone in the city of Chicago to address the needs and the concerns they have basically with housing. But back to myself, being homeless and searching for clean, safe, affordable housing where I could live and it would be somewhere that I would choose to live is more than a job, okay? And I've been dealing with this long before I became homeless because affordable housing in the city of Chicago is very hard to come by, and a lot of people are searching, have been searching for that, and still continue to do that. We have the CHA, Chicago Housing Authority, but my experience with the CHA has been least than what's desired, and I know that there are areas that the Chicago Housing Authority can be improved, and that's where the Keeping the Promise ordinance comes in. The Keeping the Promise ordinance is an ordinance that we, as a collaboration of different organizations and advocates and people with concerns for housing, are working to have CHA change and be accountable for the things that they have been doing to change to the things that they need to do to meet our needs for housing, and for them to be more transparent, because we find through the years of looking through records and through articles that the CHA had accumulated over $400 million. See, they're paid every year from HUD, Housing and Urban Development, millions of dollars to provide housing. But through deregulation, they can pretty much do what they want to with this money. And they have. They've done things like pay off their pension fund, which really does help us with housing for people who need it. And just through their voucher program, it's run, I'll say it's run, but that really is not what I would say is done. They have a wait list, and you never know when the wait list is going to open. You never know if you're going to be able to get on the wait list. And once, if you're lucky enough to get on the wait list, you don't know how long it would take you to be processed, and if you'll be processed and get to the point where you can get a place. And also, once you finally get to that point, there's a limited time that you have to actually secure housing. So there are a number of problems that we find with the Chicago Housing Initiative that the CHA can improve. My experience with the wait list is maybe about 20 years ago. I'd lost my job, and I definitely needed somewhere to stay. I was staying around with family members and other people, basically homeless. When you don't have a place of your own, my definition is you're homeless, and I was, okay? I'm thankful for family, but trying to get housing here in the city of Chicago is more than a job, okay? Right, so I did get lucky enough to get on the housing list, but what happens is when the CHA has you on their housing list, if they mail you some information or mail you a letter, you have to respond. If you don't, you get kicked off the wait list. And just so happened by me being homeless and moving around that I lost my spot. I went to check, find out about housing. Well, we wrote you a letter and you're not on the list anymore. That hurts. But continue on looking for housing as I have and done, because, as I say, I've always needed affordable housing, okay? And now with once I became homeless and was living in the shelter, which was another experience in itself, okay, besides living with family, I'm thankful for that, and I'm thankful we have shelters. But we have many people who are living in shelters, and we have many people who are actually even living on the streets, on the viaducts, and all kinds of things. We have people that need affordable housing. We have veterans. We have disabled people, whether it's mental, physical, and whatever the situation would be. We have people who, through age, maybe have limited sources or limited places where they can get housing. So there are a number of things with the Chicago Housing Initiative that would help through the Keeping the Promise ordinance, which we are bringing and trying right now to get a meeting with the mayor, Mayor Rahm Emanuel, because we've been trying for years to do this, to get him to support the Keeping the Promise ordinance and help with the many concerns we have with housing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. I would like to really quickly just announce, in addition to our panel, we have someone, Fred from Next Steps, just joined the panel. So welcome, Fred. Okay. You go.
So again, I'm Ann Sheets from the Illinois Single Payer Coalition. We are an ally of Chicago Adapt. In fact, Chicago Adapt is an organizational member of the Illinois Single Payer Coalition. We're also allies of the Chicago Mental Health Movement. So this is what we work for. It's something that does not yet exist in this country, but we're working for it. When we have what we are working for, which is called a single payer healthcare system, also called expanded and improved Medicare for all, also called national health insurance, every person who lives in this country will have Medicare automatically from birth to death, automatically. Every person who lives in this country will have the same health insurance. That health insurance will pay 100% of all necessary medical costs, 100%. Whether you're going for a medicine, a wheelchair, insulin, your doctor's appointment, prenatal care, it will be paid for 100%. You won't owe anything. We will all pay for this together through a Medicare tax, and we're working for is a progressive tax. That means the less money you have, the less you pay. The more money you have, the more you pay. That way you get what you need and you put in according to your ability. This actually is one way to transfer wealth from the wealthy to those who have less. Because everybody gets what they need, but the wealthy pay in more. You can go to any doctor, hospital, pharmacy, dentist, whatever optometrist that you want to, because everybody's in the same system. That's what we're working for. If anybody wants to know more about this, or you want to put your name on a list of people who supports this, you can talk to me afterwards. I'll hang around after the end of this program. So I know that, so there's not going to be any Medicaid, because everybody's going to have Medicare. There's not going to be any employer insurance because everybody's going to have Medicare. Everybody has the same thing automatically. And we can actually do that and spend less money than we're spending right now on healthcare, which is going over $3 trillion, $3 trillion for the whole country. We can take care of everybody and spend less money with the system we're talking about because it's administratively so simple. Right now, in this country, we spend an estimated $400 billion per year as a country on administering our healthcare system. That's money that we can take out of administration and bureaucracy and put into actually taking care of people. There's a national bill for this. It's called HR 676, the Expanded and Improved Medicare for All Act, chief sponsor John Conyers of Michigan. There's also a state bill because we're working through the states and the nation at the same time. Representative Mary Flowers is the chief sponsor. She just came in. That's called the Illinois Universal Health Care Act. Just to put in perspective what's going on with Medicaid managed care, I mean, I know that rates have been cut, but when you think about where their money goes, Blue Cross Blue Shield, the CEO in 2014 got something over $12 million in compensation. Doesn't sound too bad to me. Centene, the parent of Illini Care, in the first quarter of 2016, the amount of their premiums that they spent on actual health care decreased from 89.9% to 88.7%. Well, that's a lot of money because they take in a lot of money, and their share prices went up. The investors thought that was wonderful, that they're spending less money on actually taking care of people. And they said that it was among the people who needed the most care that they had been able to make cuts. Mark Bertolini of Aetna made something like $30 million in 2013. The president and CEO of WellCare, the parent of Harmony, made something over $7 million in 2015. So these are huge amounts of money. Well, they're not going to be able to do that. The insurance companies are going to be out of healthcare. All of the money is going to go to very simple administration, and then it's going to go to take care of people. That's what we're working for. Thank you.
So I'm Michelle Garcia. I'm the Latino community organizer here at Access Living. So along the lines that Anne is working, I organize a group called Cambiando Vidas, which in English translates to Changing Lives. It's a group of Latino organized community-based members. And so the majority of the members of Cambiando Vidas are uninsured and undocumented. So what does this mean for the work that we do, or that we are working on now, is that we fight for, of course, services that help this particular community, and more so because, I don't know if you know, but there's not much that the uninsured, undocumented community can get, especially with our state budget as it is now, right? So we are working currently on in a coalition which is called Healthy Cook Counties, Community Cook County, and it's like 30 organizations that got together to work on getting commissioners to get an ordinance together that would, similar to what Anna has been talking about, to get something at the county level. We want to do it at the state level, but we're going step by step. At the county level, that would allow uninsured as well as undocumented. So it's not only for the undocumented, but it's for the uninsured population to get medical insurance, be it at the medical clinic, at the hospitals, to get medical supply, medical equipment, so on and so forth, because as we know, it's much necessary for people with disabilities and for everyone who needs medical attention. There's, let's see, 44% of uninsured people who are low cost, or who are unaware of low cost healthcare services, and 70% who have applied for some services and have not been able to attain it because of their status, which is quite sad, unfortunately. But this is mainly because the people do not know that regardless of status, there are programs out there that they are actually able to apply for. So this program would allow the people who are uninsured and undocumented, and everybody who is uninsured again, I want to just make that again clear, to get access to this program. We've been working for over almost 2 years on trying to get this together. Finally, this past Wednesday, Cook County Commissioner Gaynor made it so that it was introduced to the Cook County Board of Commissioners. It was a struggle to put this whole ordinance together because we were going back and forth with the hospital saying that this was going to cost a lot of money. However, we found out that this money has always been there. They just been hiding it under the mattress. So the county has money from different buckets of money, and they've been just like not using it when they were supposed to be using it. They have something called charity care, and what is the other one? I can't think of the other one right now. Oh my God, I'll remember it when I'm not talking about it. But so it's charity care and yes. So I know. Thank you. Anyhow, so these two buckets of money were hidden. Now the county, the president of the county told them, you have to use this money. So this is going to be used for this ordinance, which is going to fall into place and voted on actually on September 14th. So we need as many people to come out on September 14th to the Cook County Board meeting and, push, actually celebrate the fact that this ordinance is going to be voted on because it's been a huge struggle. We have not seen nothing like this before, where people not who are uninsured at any level are going to be, getting what they need like they're supposed to be. And of course, there's going to be accountability process, so we'll be doing that as well. And I think the last thing I just want to say, there is a program. This program is going to be launched in December 1st. It has been a successful program in 5 other states, so we know it works. And it's called Direct Access Program. So that's when you hear those words, please make sure that you support. There's more information on the table, please ask me for more information if you need so. Thank you.
So hi, I'm Susan Magacy, and I am a researcher at the University of Illinois at Chicago. I have been working with Tom and Judy and many, many other people in this room for many, many years now. Over 10, looking specifically at issues around healthcare and healthcare access for people with disabilities. So we know from this work, and we know from hearing from so many of you, that people with disabilities often don't get equal access or quality of healthcare. We know this is true in primary care. We hear about this in preventative care and screening, such as cancer screening, and now also in the area of cancer care. So I have one ask for you and one offer for you that I would like to do. So now that we've documented the problem by hearing from so many of you, we are working on developing interventions or programs that can help people get better access to care. And a lot of these programs are building off of the principles and the strengths of the disability community and the independent living movement. So issues like peer support, consumer directedness, and nothing about us without us are central to the programs that we're doing. So one of the programs that we're trying to do is develop better supports for people with disabilities who are experiencing what they call the double whammy of having cancer on top of a pre-existing disability. But as we develop these programs, we need to hear from people with disabilities who have experienced cancer. So we're trying to do some focus groups so we can hear your voices, ideas, and suggestions. Because if we develop a program without your input, it's not going to work and it's not going to meet your needs. So we have flyers. Laura, right here in the middle. If you are a person with a disability, any kind of disability, who has experienced cancer, any kind of cancer, or know somebody who has, this is open to men, women, any kind of disability, we need to hear from you and get your ideas and suggestions moving forward. We've been doing outreach at some of these meetings, and we're just not getting enough people. So if you have ideas of other groups or other communities that we could reach out to, the deaf community in particular, we want to make sure that we include people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We want to make sure we include. So please give us your ideas and your suggestions on how we can get out there. So these will be focus groups, probably held here at Access Living, hopefully in September. And just keep in touch with us or with Tom and Judy if you need more information. We'll have a sign-up sheet and flyers for you. So one of the other things that we've been doing is collecting people's stories of trying to get care. And Laura, sorry. We have a very, very short 2-minute video, less than 2 minutes, that we want to show you that was created by some folks here at Access Living. Some of you may be seeing it for the first time. And then, screen. And then I'll go with the offer that we have for you.
My name is Fred Friedman. I want to thank everyone for giving me this opportunity. And I want to apologize for coming late. I haven't been feeling well, and I literally got out of a sick bed to come here to give this, to talk to you. Whether it's worth it to you, I guess you'll have to decide later. I'm from Next Steps, which is an organization of people with lived experience of homelessness, mental illness symptoms, involvement with the justice system, and substance abuse. We believe that all four of those systems are fundamentally flawed for many, many reasons. One reason that they're flawed is that they simply don't meet the needs and desires of the people who use those systems. We don't get the services we want or need, we get the services that somebody is willing to pay for, and somebody is willing to provide at the price that they're willing to pay for it. This crosses all, almost everything that we do, all human services, so it is an overwhelming problem. Now, when I normally speak, I don't speak as an ally, although we are an ally. What I am is a person with lived experience of severe mental illness symptoms. As a matter of fact, severe mental illness symptoms that are active as we're talking today. And normally I tell my story of my symptoms and how I try to resolve that. But Next Steps is, in fact, an ally of the people in this room. We recently got a grant from the federal government, and the person who's going to be the project coordinator for that grant is going to start Monday the 15th. And the purpose of that grant is to weave together all of the people who have symptoms of mental illness and who feel that somehow the system isn't serving them. And in particular, what we're going to do is build allies with particular subgroups in the population. So there are people in the audience who have physical disabilities, and that's probably what you view as your primary concern. But a portion of you also have symptoms of mental illness, and you would also like services for that. And in particular, we're going to try to figure out a way that we can build allies across those symptoms. Actually, I guess that's enough. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer. Matt Perry recently got the job. He's going to have an office here in Access Living. You can contact him. You can contact me if you have any questions about this progress. And it is important to understand that we're here to help you, and more importantly, and to ask for your help to help us. Because frankly, these are problems that are too big to be solved in a silo. They need to be fundamental changes. And this fundamental change can only happen if we, the people in this room and the people who haven't made it to this room yet, work as hard as we possibly can. And we're here to help you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The state budget cuts this year are going to be hurting the suburban districts more than city district, Chicago, as far as we at least have heard. However, there were major cuts last year. There's been cuts year after year after year. I was actually doing archival research at the Harold Washington Library yesterday, and in 1998, they were writing about the same budget nonsense that they've been talking about in the last couple of years. So this has been going on for decades. This isn't new. So what CPS likes to do, it's always an economic crisis. There's always a budget crisis that has to be on the backs of the children and the unions, and never at the top, and never for their contracted friends, the vendors that make a lot of money. So they like to hide cuts and damage in two different ways. So one, they'll try to make it a civil rights issue. That's their spin. And two, they'll just try to hide the fact that there are actually any cuts happening. And what they thrive on is that people aren't standing up and fighting back and explaining to the media and explaining to politicians exactly how the cuts are affecting them. So what they really thrive on is parents just giving up and leaving the district. That's their favorite way to deal with it. And many, many parents have. I'm sure you remember in 2013, CPS closed 2 special ed schools, Buckingham and Near North. Those children, 60 total, went to Montefiore, which is kind of in the middle of the city. It's around Ashland and Roosevelt. That school mysteriously closed last year, quietly. It was given away to a private alternative school. It was only the due diligence of Catalyst Chicago that actually uncovered it. What was left of all the children from the combined closings started the school year with 30 children who just all mysteriously left. CPS said they don't know what happened. They all left on their own. Everything's fine, which is always how they deal with it. And they make it so difficult for parents and students and teachers to fight for disability rights, all the rights in the state and federal law, that, like I said, people just give up. So what they've been doing over time is cutting more and more. The assistants are completely cut. The teachers are cut, and there's always a lot of vacancies. This is one of the most stressful jobs you can have in the system. The IEP, which is, when students get identified with a disability, there's this like 20-page document and all this constant monitoring and meetings and updates that have to happen. They make it as onerous and difficult as possible to administer. And, everything that we're fighting for in our contract just for regular classroom teachers is 10 times more difficult for special ed teachers. You add to that the enormous poverty in Chicago, and how can parents even be advocates when their kid is across town because schools have closed, when they can't get to the school during the day to be part of meetings. I mean, there's enormous barriers in general for working families in Chicago, let alone trying to be a full-time advocate for your child in the school that's refusing to help your child. So they started doing 2 things in the last couple of years. One is called All Means All, and I'm sure there's a big debate in this room here, as there is across the country, on to what extent inclusion should happen. Parents are divided, service providers are divided. There's a lot of differing opinion of how inclusion should happen. So again, they're trying to make it a civil rights issue. Let's just mainstream everybody. That's in the best interest of the children. But nobody was interviewed, nobody was consulted, there were no focus groups. We don't know to what extent they're talking about where they're getting their numbers from. Where are they getting their numbers from? A private consultant looked at the data, a spreadsheet, not classroom, actual, on the ground. They looked at a spreadsheet and they said, we have too many special ed assistants and providers in the school. It doesn't match national norms. Therefore, we have to cut it because there's a budget crisis. They're also blaming some of this on an achievement gap disparity in test scores. The union does not like to look at test scores. There's a million reasons why the tests are wrong. It's very hard for any kid with the most advantages in the world to score 100% on these on these tests, let alone kids with disabilities and poverty and everything else. So that is one way that they spin it. What they're doing this year, in addition to these cuts, is the principals are given autonomy to be able to figure out how to best schedule and provide services. And this is all supposed to be like, yay, let's let the schools figure it out. Well, the principals aren't prepared for this. They weren't trained for this. I am sure you saw in the news, a whole bunch of principals just left in June because they're like, I'm out of here, this is ridiculous. You just can't keep doing what the district is doing. The entire department practically over special ed is gone. One lady went to Springfield, so we're very scared what the state's gonna look like under her. But that's Kate Foley, just in case you're wondering. But they keep changing the people at the top. They keep changing the rules. They keep changing the program. And then meanwhile, there's all these cuts. So and basically, I know I sound like I'm babbling, it's very hard to even assess the state of special ed at CPS. It's a moving target. It's a mess. They thrive on that because then, like I said, parents can't advocate, teachers can't advocate. But this year, we need to be diligent as much as we can. They are going to be they closed all vacancies. Special ed has the highest level of vacancies for teachers and support staff because it's so stressful. So all vacancies are closed as of June, which is 707 support staff, which is 8% of all, that's teachers, ed classroom assistants, sign language interpreters, And we don't know what that's going to mean. For teachers, which is one of the highest that's being cut, it'll probably be 2 assistants replacing a teacher, which assistants are awesome. First of all, teachers need assistants. They can't lose their assistants. 2 assistants can't teach a class. They are not qualified. They are not certified or qualified to teach a class. No. CPS isn't looking at any of this. This is simply budget cuts to them. Our children are nothing but data points to them. And people need to speak up. Access Living does a great job. We're on a special ed task force together, but we need more of it. We need more stories. We need more parents coming. The media is constantly looking for us to be able to bring people for them to talk to, so they can hear exactly what happens when these cuts are made.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I think we are. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. I'm sorry. You go.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jackie Rodriguez, and I come from the labor union SEIU, the Service Employees International Union. I represent 90,000 healthcare workers, half of which take care of people with disabilities and seniors. So I just want to say thank you for inviting us. I feel at home here because you are the people that work with our members, and without you guys, we wouldn't have some of the victories that we've had. So again, I just want to say thank you. So I guess, I just want to start off with, I talked a little bit about who we are. We represent healthcare workers, and we've listened to a lot of the shared struggles. And our struggles as a labor union is not much different from what you've heard. Our members are the folks that live in your communities, right? Our members are the folks that work with you guys. And the challenges we have faced, not just with this administration, but even in the prior administration, have been what we've heard. It's cuts, cuts, cuts. And who gets cut the worst is the most vulnerable, right? And under this administration, I don't think that we have faced such an enemy, such an onslaught of just coming after, not just working people, but coming after the most vulnerable. Just to give you some examples, right? Cuts to Medicaid are always something that we've been used to, we've been hearing about. But last year, right, this governor wanted to cut at least 40,000 seniors and people with disabilities out of the program because that was their way of trying to save money, right? But that would do what? We heard earlier about the closing of mental health centers, right? What would these cuts do to people with disabilities and seniors? What would that do to the people that work for them and provide services? We were able to, stop him in his tracks. Why? Because it took folks like you guys and our members, to lobby in Springfield, to really pressure not only Democrats, but even the Republicans to say, this is what you're going to do to your constituents. And we were able to, again, just put the brakes on him, right? We were able to save many people from losing their programs. But not only Medicaid cuts, right? The other threats that we have faced as a labor union is that this governor has come out really strong to chip away at benefits that our workers took 20 to 25 years to win. For example, health insurance. For example, a training program that would train home care workers on how do you navigate this program? What are your responsibilities? How do you identify issues with your customer? How do you help them? How do you stay a responsible personal assistant in a big bureaucratic program? He's gutted that. He was close to gutting our health insurance if it wasn't for a lawsuit. And not only that, he's saying, I'm not going to give you your health insurance. I don't want to give you your training, and I want you to accept a 4-year wage freeze. Again, many of you guys know more about this than I do, but it is really hard to find healthcare workers. It is really hard to find a home care worker to do the job that you need them to do. And if there are no good benefits or wages, it is very hard to sustain a responsible and reliable program. So these are, just some of the challenges we have faced. So how have we been able to fight? We haven't been able to do it by ourselves, right? Allies like Access Living, the disability community, the senior citizens community have been really good at us lifting the voices of the impact, like what we've heard on this panel, right? We need voices. The media, is interested in them, but we need to do a lot of the painting of the picture. So that's one way we've been able to fight back.
Can you put the microphone close to you?
Sure, thank you. The other way has been at, lobbying and pressuring the hell out of these legislators, right? We cannot, give them a free pass. And it's not just the Republicans. We have to keep our Democrats, we have to keep their feet close to the fire. So that is a lot of the work that our members and people here in this room are very familiar with. Like, that's how we've been able to protect the little that we have, but also to keep fighting against what they want to take away. I guess I would just want to close with this, what are the solutions, right? We could, fight like hell in Springfield. We can hit the streets like hell, and we can make all the noise that we want, but we know that if we don't come to the table with solutions, we're just going to be the loud union, right? Or, the people that say, oh, they're just making noise and they're blocking my traffic and they're really getting in my way when I need to get to work, right? But the solutions that we have are not much different from what you have heard today, right? We need to reform the tax system. We need to tax the hell out of the rich and the corporations, because it is not true when they say we don't have money in the state. We know that they do, because all of us pay our taxes. There are other folks in this neighborhood that don't pay as much as we do. So that is something that we are fighting with a lot of the folks here on improving the tax system. Demanding revenue, but at the same time, we need to continue to build strength in our communities. We need you all, like we've said here, because if they don't hear us, if they don't see us, it's as if what we said here is not going to move enough. So again, just want to say thank you, and I'm more than happy to represent our members in our union and to know that you guys are fighting with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was very informative and powerful, and I'm glad you didn't let me cut you off. I'm sorry about that. Thank you to everybody who is on this panel today. I think we're all very proud to be working with everybody here to make progress on these issues.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to ask the next panel to come up. We're going to move to the state legislators panel because we're running behind. We're going to flip it a little bit. Judy Panko-Reese is going to facilitate that. If we could have the legislators, Senator Biss and Representative Flowers, come forward.
Good afternoon, everybody. I want to draw your attention to our next panel. As Tom mentioned, we have flipped our schedule a little bit to accommodate the schedules of Senator Biss and Representative Flowers. And I just want to thank everybody who's taken the time out of your day to support this town hall and to work collaboratively with us here at Access Living. A good way to start our next panel is to echo something that Fred Friedman said, is how do we as a community go about getting the services we need, not the services that somebody wants to pay for. And as we've heard from people in the room are in, I'd like to have some quiet here in the room. I'd like to get answers or thoughts or suggestions on how do we go about getting the services we need and deserve, not the services that are being willing to pay for.
Please, ladies and gentlemen, we need to have some.
Okay. We're going to need some quiet here so we can hear each other. All right. So we heard from people that are losing, on the cusp of losing their home care services, their personal care attendants because of the governor's veto to the Dawn score. And we've asked our legislators here today to talk briefly about their visions and recommendations on ways to partner with us to help strengthen human services for people with disabilities in the state of Illinois. Our first speaker will be Senator Biss, and anything you would like to say. Senator Biss and Representative Flowers are longtime partners and allies of people with disabilities here in the state of Illinois. Thank you, Senator Biss.
Well, thank you very much. Can you guys hear me? No? Maybe? All right. Let me know if it's getting hard to hear, and I'll do something different. Thank you so much, Judy. Thank you for the invitation to be here. And thank you for all the fighting that you do for causes that are important not just for the people in this room, but for literally millions of people in Illinois who we have been, as a state, mistreating and ignoring for a very long time. It's an honor for me to stand shoulder to shoulder with you in so many of these fights, and I look forward to a lot more work that we have to do together. Just to start at the very beginning, because things are really dark and difficult right now, but let's not forget that things have been pretty problematic when it comes to human services in Illinois for a very long time. Is this better? Well, I'll repeat the last sentence, which was a sad one. I want to just start by observing that it's not just today. We've had a lot of problems when it comes to adequately supporting human services in Illinois for a very long time. For a very long time. If you think about what happened really starting in 2003, when Rod Blagojevich became governor, he wanted to expand a lot of programs, good programs, to be honest, but he didn't want to raise the revenue to pay for them. Wasn't willing to do it. And so one of the ways that he was able to expand some programs and not raise the revenue needed to pay for them was to go after human services. And human services experienced cuts after cuts after cuts before the Great Recession. And then the Great Recession happened and everybody got cut. And so we have a long and really ugly history in Illinois of turning our backs on the most vulnerable people on behalf of whom government is supposed to exist in the first place, instead of saying, hey, that's our first set of responsibilities. But of course, there's more. Then in the beginning of 2015, a year and a half ago, Bruce Rauner became the governor of Illinois. And whoa, it's been a really, really dramatic and scary downhill change. And the attack has been pretty broad-based. Services for individuals with disabilities, services for older adults, child care, health care. Across the board, anybody in need of help from government has been used as a pawn. So there was some conversation about how the governor vetoed a bill last week. So this is a bill that I passed in the Senate. Representative Greg Harris was the House sponsor. I think it's House Bill 4351, is that right? I think that's right. This was a bill to do a few things. First of all, to keep the DON score threshold where it is at 29. To say that we believe that someone whose DON score is 29 or 30 or 31 or 32 or 33 or 34 needs help from the state, deserves services supported by the state. We believe that that's necessary. We believe those services are required for people to live dignified, independent lives. We believe that those services are crucial for preserving not only quality of life, but the civil rights that every citizen is entitled to. And hey, we also believe it's good for the state because it's the best and most cost-effective way to provide services. And that's not the only thing that bill did. The bill did several other things as well. We passed it, but we didn't pass it with a veto-proof majority. And then the governor vetoed it. So we've got some work ahead of us. If we're going to be able to veto this bill, override the veto of this bill, we're going to have to persuade a few people who didn't vote for it the first time around to change their position the second time around. I don't think that's impossible, but I don't think that's easy. And for us to be successful in doing that, we all have to work together. We have to be very strategic in identifying those few votes that are most potentially changeable, and we have to work like crazy to explain to people two things. Number one, this is the right thing to do. This is the right thing to do for your constituents, for civil rights, for the state. It's the right thing to do. It's the necessary thing to do. But that's not all. We also have to explain, number two, Your constituents demand this of you. The people in your district are no longer going to stand for you saying, well, I'll support people who need state services sometimes, when it's convenient, when it's easy, when the governor isn't telling me I'm not supposed to. We need to persuade people that this is a set of values that their constituents demand. And that, I think, brings us to the most important question, which is we have to ask ourselves, how have we allowed ourselves to get to a place as a society where we just act like, well, you know, it would be nice if we could help people who need help, but we just can't. But we just don't feel like it now. But we just can't afford it this year. How did we get there? And how do we get out of there? I think there's a few things that we have to think about. The first is that we have this idea about what's affordable that's pretty shallow. Our definition of what's affordable is about how much money do we have in the bank right now. It's not about what's the right investment in the long term. It's not about what's our obligation to the people of the state of Illinois. It's not about what are other ways to find that money. It's not about what kind of society do we want to live in. It's not about what kind of place do we want Illinois to be in 20 years and what do we have to do to get from here to there. It's about how much money do we have in the bank today. And we have to move away from that whole way of thinking about government. Government is about what we as a people do together on behalf of the whole society and in order to build the kind of place we want to live in. And there's certain things that are non-negotiable. Civil rights are non-negotiable. Care for people who are reliant upon the state should be non-negotiable. We have to change that conversation so we're living in that way. But the next thing we have to do is we have to create a movement of people across the state who say, I need these services to be funded, maybe because I personally rely on these services, but maybe not. Maybe because my neighbor does. Maybe because my friend does. Maybe because my relative does. Maybe because no one I know does, but that's the kind of society I want to live in. What's happened for not just the last year and a half when Bruce Rauner has been governor, but for decades before that, has been that politicians have been pretty good at saying, well, services for the vulnerable aren't really that important to me politically because there's a lot of people who don't rely on them. And I'll go to those people who don't rely on services to get votes. And what I would say is the question that I want every voter to be asking is not what service do I need this minute? It's what kind of place do I want our society to be? And what do the people around me need out of government? And so I am incredibly excited about the work that all of you do to force us to ask those kind of questions. And I just want to end by saying I am here and ready to stand with you to help continue to build that movement and grow that movement and create that pressure, because literally the whole purpose of government is being subverted unless we get this right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor. I'm sorry, I called you Governor. Thank you, Senator. Next, we have another strong and longtime ally of Access Living, Representative Mary Flowers. And we will take questions for both briefly after Representative Flowers' remarks.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. First of all, I want to thank Access Living for inviting me here and thank each and every last one of you for your advocacy throughout the years on behalf of not only yourselves, but others who can't make it to Springfield. And as always, Senator Biss is always a hard act to follow, but allow me a moment, please. I just want to take a moment and read something, if I may. This is from the preamble of the Constitution. And I like to kind of review it every now and then to put things in perspective. And if I may just take an excerpt. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and your pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, government are instituted among men. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive, we need to do something to change it. This is just I'm just reading an excerpt, that's not verbatim, but you get my point. The government is instituted among men. We give the power to the government. Whenever they're not doing what they're supposed to do on behalf of us, we, the people who are being governed, need to do something about it. Now, Senator Biss has given you a very plain and simple layout as to how we got here. But who are these people to make decisions that you are not worthy to pursue what the Declarations of Independence said that you are entitled to? Your life, your liberty, and your pursuit of happiness. They call us liars. They said you were cheating. You were fudging on your overtime as far as your workers that was coming to your homes. How dare they? But the fact of the matter is, did they say Wall Street cheated? Did they say the insurance industry, did they say they cheated? What about the car dealers? Did they say they cheated? But yet the government, with our tax dollars, bailed them out. And we, the people, we lost. We lost our homes. We lost our liberties. We lost our schools. We lost our kids' education. And to talk about people with disability, that's in the constant. Our kids have a right to an education, specialized education. Not only about your disability, it could be a neighborhood like I live in where you can't sleep at night because of guns and bullets flying all over your heads. You have a right not to live in these conditions. So, ladies and gentlemen, to say that they've cut the budget and balanced the budget off of poor people, because none of the banks have gone under. None of the rich people, the 1%ers, they have not gone under. Look at downtown city Chicago on my way down here. They're building bridges, highways, skyscrapers, basketball courts, bigger parks. But yet, our utilities going up not once, not twice. I heard on the news coming over here that the people on the west side want to increase their taxes to have a mental health facility in their community. But when they increase their property taxes and they lose their jobs or their pay is cut and they can no longer pay the taxes, then who's going to fund the mental health facilities? We need to think about what we're doing. Why are we funding this off our backs when they are collecting monies from us every day, making deals with outside corporations every day? I'm telling you that enough is enough. And we need to have an insult level. And this, I really commended you what you did back in May or June when you stopped traffic. And I commend the Black Lives Matter when they stopped traffic. And there's no reason why that we cannot have a cohesiveness. Today is the celebration of Martin Luther King when he marched in Marquette Park. We can't feel like this doesn't apply to us, because if they mistreat you today, they're coming after me tomorrow. If they take away your access to living, they're going to take away mine tomorrow. They already tried to take away our pension. The Supreme Court stopped it. This governor needs to know, this mayor needs to know, and every last one of us as elected official needs to know that we work for you, the people. Thank you. And I just want to say that I see Fran is here, and I'm missing his son because his son came down to Springfield and stole the show in regards to a financial transaction tax. I know where we can get the monies from, ladies and gentlemen, and it is from the 1 percenters. They are not paying any taxes on the transactions that they make. That's number one. And Dr. Ann Sheets was here, and she was telling you about single-payer health care. And she's still here, thank you very much. On Sunday, I turned 65. A month ago, I received 2 things in the mail. One was my conceal and carry card, the other was my Medicare card. If we had Medicare for all, we would not have to negotiate with any third-party person, insurance company that's raising up our costs. So why is it mandated by federal law that we have to pay for insurance that we cannot have access to because we cannot afford the deductibles? Why is it that the prescription drug industry is allowed to raise their rates, and therefore the insurance that I'm paying for to get to see my doctor that I can't see, but I can't even get the prescription drugs because I can't afford it? What is wrong with this picture, ladies and gentlemen? Where is our outrage? And whoever's running for president, and I support Hillary Clinton 100% because she believes in the same thing that I believe in, that there should be Medicare for all, that the 1 percenters should pay. She could deal with her situation about a Wall Street in Washington, D.C. I will deal with LaSalle Street here in the state of Illinois. Our children is very important to the future of this state in each and every last one of us. And to know that they're closing schools but not closing prisons, and to know that they are not allowing our children to have a quality education, that tells you the route in which this state is headed. Because without an educated society, we are all doomed to fail. So we have to protect these children. We have to make sure that each and every last one of them are having and have access to quality education. Not the education because of the zip code they live in or what their parents are doing or not doing. This is not for the rich and famous. The Constitution, once again, says, we the people. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Representative Flowers. Give everybody, we've got time for a few brief questions. Do we have questions?
My name is Antonio Sanders, and here's my question. I was speaking on the topic of literacy and literacy programs for people who are deaf. We need to have schools, educational systems here in Chicago that have accessibility for people who are deaf, who are also unable to read. We need to have or to hire deaf people, not just hearing people. We need deaf people who could communicate with our deaf citizens who need literacy programs, because many times our deaf citizens are afraid to communicate with the hearing community. That's a barrier to being able to express what they need to, and then they can't get jobs because of the hearing culture that does not understand or doesn't really try to offer programs for the deaf community to develop. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Flowers and Senator Bisk, can you?
I agree with you, sir. The Olmstead Act is about people with disabilities, that you're supposed to be able to live in your community without any obstructions. That means handicap, that means hearing impaired, that means any type of disability. And so once again, that's a civil rights violation. Again, it's a violation of the Declaration of the Constitution of Independence and the Constitution of the United States of America. These are things that we should be outraged about. And these are things that when you talk to anyone at the Board of Education, they're not even bringing that up. And I think there's only one deaf school in the state of Illinois, if I'm not mistaken. There's two. That is unconscionable. And there might be one in Chicago, but I do know the other is in the downstate. So I agree with you. There's some in Jacksonville, that is correct, because I had a parent that I had to take out there once. So there's one in Chicago and one down in Jacksonville. That is unacceptable for any person with this type of disability, that you would have to either travel to Jacksonville and or to the one school in the city of Chicago, which may or may not be what you need. So you are entitled to go to school in your community. The services are supposed to be there. And if not, again, that is a violation of your civil rights. And if I was a lawyer, I guarantee you I would be in court every day.
Thank you. Senator Biss, did you have a comment on that?
No, I think Representative Flowers is exactly right, and I'll just leave it at that so we can go to more questions.
Hello, my name is Ronald Thomas, and is this true that the mayor want us to pay utilities for our pension? It was on the news that mayor want us to, for our pension, to pay utilities.
I think the question is it true there's talk about increased utility tax to pay for the pensions? I believe that's what the mayor is proposing, yeah.
What are your views on that?
I'll just say that we need the money for the pensions. We also need to find progressive ways to raise money, and there are progressive ways to raise money, and I would rather see us start with those, not start with the mechanisms that affect the middle class and the working poor the most.
I just would like to say that I disagree with the method. Once again, you're balancing, you're providing pension funds for people that don't have a pension. Most of the people in this room may be on Social Security. So he's not talking about your pension. And there is no place in the law that says that the pension has to be fully funded. And if it is in the law, the same men and women that made the law, they could change it. But if you're constantly laying off people and cutting their pay, you will never fully fund the pension. And so your taxes are going to constantly go up until you can no longer afford your property anymore, until you can no longer afford to have your garbage emptied anymore, until you're no longer able to afford the water that you necessarily need. It's not a choice that you could do without water. You need water to survive.
My question is, it's like the schools in Illinois, are they supposed to be wheelchair accessible?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, because I know there's like, most of the schools in Oak Park are not accessible.
Well, that's a huge problem, and there's totally spotty compliance, and it's not right.
And to answer that Antonio's question, there's also like a blind and deaf school in, I think it's in Hinsdale, in the western suburbs.
I just want to say that if there are schools, if you notice the sidewalks, they are making, and they should have been making, the sidewalks handicap accessibles. If you notice when you go into the stores, all businesses, the doors are supposed to be wide enough that will be handicap accessibles. The bathrooms are supposed to be wide enough for handicap accessible. All schools, all buildings, all apartment buildings are supposed to be handicap accessible. They're supposed to be wide enough to get a wheelchair in. They're supposed to have elevators. There are certain things by federal law, and the state has to comply with, that's a violation if the schools are not handicap accessible.
Thank you, and thank you, Heather, for the question. Our Civil Rights Department here, our Housing Department here, our Education Department here is constantly working on these issues. We've got a lot of hands up, and we don't have time. How many questions do we have time for? Okay, two more. Chewy, very quick. Very quick.
Okay, she said very quick, very quick. Mary Flowers, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to correct you. We in the disability community do not like to use the word handicap. We prefer wheelchair accessible, if you're referring to people in wheelchairs, or disability accessible.
Let me just say this, and please let me just say this to you, because we can get caught up in semantics, but we're all handicapped to a certain degree. And so therefore, you could say that we're all disabled or have some form of disability. So if I offended anyone by using the word disability, I did not mean to. But I consider myself, I have my own disabilities that I have to address. So no offense intended, please.
Okay, there's a hand in the back of the room.
Hello, Mary Flowers and Daniel Bliss. Thanks for coming to Access Living. I've been seeing you, Mary, for the last 10 years. But anyway, I want to talk about employment, because we too are the poorest of the poor when it comes to unemployment for people with disabilities, and they're not giving us a chance to show that we can work. So I have put in over 100 applications in the last 3 years. I got interviewed 12 times, a lot of rejections. But no callbacks for interviews, no callbacks when I put in applications. Not just me, but everybody here are suffering in deep poverty.
Great. So,
Okay, we have a lot of other program that we have to get through. So I saw Henry's hand and Kathy's hand, and I think we're going to have to wrap it up pretty soon here then. I know everybody's got questions, but we're going to have the group discussions. If you have something that you want to bring up at the table discussion, we could actually communicate that to the legislators too. Yeah. Do you have something you want to finish with? Let's let Henry and Kathy get their questions out there. Let's do the 2 questions, and then they can do final remarks.
Thank you for being here and listening to us. I really enjoyed Mary Flowers, the South Street tax hearing. That was mega. What I have to say is difficult because it concerns the city of Chicago and mental health services, which are deplorable. I don't know how many people are in the city. We figure at least 20% of people are affected by mental illness in some way or another. We have 6 clinics for the entire city, which is half of what we had, which is half of what we had before with the Community Health Act. And right now, we're learning about Healthy Chicago now, and it makes me kind of throw up every time I hear it, but that's, I just swallow it down a little bit. My question is, the Healthy Chicago initiative now is supposedly treating trauma in schools. And let's face it, you live in the city of Chicago, it's a trauma to walk out the door every day. That's just the way it is. So if a person, and I wonder about this, there are no city services in the public health department that handle teenagers, children. Children used to not even be able to have mental illness. They said children don't have mental illness, and we know that's a fallacy. We know about the stress, we know about the shootings, we know all this going on. So, in the wisdom of the city, which I thought they were right, to treat trauma is certainly a priority. I think stopping the trauma is more of a priority, but there you go. What I'm wondering is, when the services in the schools are not enough for somebody who is suffering PTSD from whatever's happened, where do they go for services? Where do they go? The nonprofits aren't taking them. Nonprofits are really busy right now taking maybe some people from the jail I really just kind of as a handful of cooperating so that they continue getting their funding, so that they continue getting their money from the big pharma. What should we do?
Representative Flowers, I noticed what you noticed when I was coming downtown. I noticed all the construction work. There's no money for the human services. All of that money being spent, in the downtown area. Do you think that those taxes are meant to get us out of the city so they can continue to move in the direction of gentrifying the neighborhoods?
So I'll just end quickly by talking a little bit about employment and let Representative Flowers handle the Chicago-specific questions because I don't represent the city. We passed a law, and it's been a long time now. It's been 3 years since we passed an employment first law in Illinois. It's not being implemented well enough. We're not doing a good enough job of living up to what the law says the policy of the state of Illinois is. What the law says is that our policy is for fully inclusive employment. That individuals with disabilities should, as their first option, have opportunities for employment in an integrated setting with fair and equal pay. And we're way behind when it comes to implementing that. I've been working with people in this room, I saw Renee Luna here earlier, and others in the community to try to push the administration to implement that more quickly, but we're not doing a good enough job, and we've just got to do better. It's a disgrace. And I just want to close there by saying there is so much more that we need to do. There is such an inadequacy of services, and as we've heard everybody talk about, we're not finding the money where it is and putting it where it needs to be. And as state government is pausing and stopping and calling itself a stalemate and waiting around, we all need to understand that the fight ahead is a fight about how to find the revenue we need to find from the places that can afford to give it in a magnitude that's enough to fund the government the people of Illinois deserve. And if we win that fight, things can begin to be different. I look forward to working with you on that.
I want to thank you for bringing up the so-called Healthy Chicago. Healthy Chicago is a survey that they're calling people on the phone to ask them, are you healthy? Do you have any mental illness? That is if your phone is still on, because there's going to be an extra tax on your landline as well as your mobile phone. And for them to gather that information and then do what with it? Because there are no mental health clinics for you, and there are no mental health providers in the schools that I would want to address if I had a child in the system that I would want to address. So I think that's just another name that's put out there to once again to give the impression that they're trying to do something, and it's really for naught. And in regards to the jobs, again, this is what I've never understood about the insurance industry. I do not understand about the governor of the state of Illinois, and I surely do not understand about the mayor. If we want more revenue, why is it that people in this room do not have a job so they could pay taxes? And that'll be more revenue. Why is it that the governor is constantly cutting people's benefits, cutting their pay? If we need more revenue, we need more people to work. If we had more people working, maybe we don't have to have as many high taxes. Maybe we wouldn't have to lay off so many people. Maybe we could save our properties, our homes, our schools, if we had more people working to pay into the revenue so they could take the money out of the revenue and pay the necessary bills. But you're constantly firing people, discriminated against people, not hiring people, less money going out, less money coming in, more money's going out in because of police brutality and all this other nonsense that the city is being sued for. You know, it's just totally outrageous and it's unacceptable, ladies and gentlemen. And I know a lot of you are tired. And I know you feel like you can't do anymore. And I know sometimes I feel like saying enough is enough. But we're not at liberty to quit because there's too many voices that cannot come out of their homes to speak up. So we have to be the voices for the voiceless. And one thing I do know, for those people who have died as a result of not being able to get access to health care, I also know the dead people cannot speak. And so therefore we have to speak on their behalf as well. Thank you very much, and I look forward to continuing the fight with you in the city of Chicago and in Springfield. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You want to give another hand of applause for our legislators? We're going to have our next panel, which is going to be our provider panel. And if they could come on up, we'll be very happy about that.
I'm going to start real quickly. I want to know who's here. You're from Aetna, okay. Aetna. So we got two people from Aetna. We have Amy from the food. I'm just trying to figure out who I have here. Okay, just a minute. Okay, this is our provider form. We've got allies here from Aetna, from CCAI, Community Care Alliance. We have providers here from Blue Cross Blue Shield, and we have a representative from the Greater Chicago Food Depository. And who am I missing? Anyone? Okay. So, all right, a lot of you have been here. You know that what we're doing here, we know you guys don't have the answers, but you're working with us. You're all working with us. You're working with us in a variety of capacities. And what we're trying to do is hear how you think the future of human services can be strengthened here in Illinois, given all the challenges we continually face. And before we do that, I'm going to give you each a chance to just give your name and one or two sentences about your interest and your experiences working with people with disabilities. And we'll start with you.
Thank you. My name is Dan Healy. I'm from Aetna Better Health. I work with the long-term services and support department. So that's with the waiver services, supporting people in their homes and setting up services with the waivers in mind. How's that? Okay.
My name is Jill Morrison. I'm also with Aetna Better Health. I'm a director in care management. Have a very hardworking team of care managers who are really here to serve you and truly want to understand the barriers that you have for access to care so we can help overcome them.
Hi, my name is Amy Ramirez. I'm here from the Greater Chicago Food Depository. We are Chicago's food bank. We provide food to about 650 member agencies that distribute food to about 730,000 people in Cook County who struggle to access food, and part of the reason we are here is also to learn about what we can do to provide better service for the people with disabilities, to make sure that we are accessing everybody in a dignified and efficient manner. So I want to thank all of you who have participated today, because my colleague Taryn and I think have learned a lot about the issues that you are all dealing with, and brainstorming how we can best address those.
Thank you, Amy. John?
Thanks for letting us be here today. My name's John Sellers, and I'm a social worker who's worked in both the greater Chicago area and downstate over the last 40 years.
I'd ask for people to keep their conversations down. We can't hear the speakers.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
Okay. And I've worked with people with all kinds of physical and mental health challenges. Currently, I'm a senior director with Blue Cross Blue Shield in the Behavioral Health Division. So I'm a leader in terms of how we design programs and implement services in the greater area around here, the 6 counties that we serve.
Thank you, John.
Good afternoon. My name is Ebony Hamilton. I'm also with Blue Cross Blue Shield. I have worked with the population of mental and health, and as well as disabilities. Can you hear me better now? Okay, I'm sorry. I just want to say I've been enlightened by some of your issues and challenges that you all face since I've been sitting here with the forum, and I am dedicated to go back and see what we can do to improve on making sure that we face some of those, assist with some of those challenges that you all also have, because we do want to make sure that you all receive the best possible services that we can provide here at Blue Cross Blue Shield. I am a senior manager with the long-term support services, and I will be helping with implementing new, developing new programs and also new ways to see that frameworks for us to work together. So that's me, and this is my Rosa.
Hi, my name is Rosa Duffy. I'm also a senior manager with Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I work with the long-term care services. I actually work with the nursing home population and the supported living facilities. So I was very happy to be here today. I also, like Ebony, we have taken lots of notes, and we are going to go back to our leadership and see how we can actually improve a lot of the processes and bring along some of the concerns that you're having. So thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Amy Edders, and I work with Community Care Alliance of Illinois. I am the Director of Long-Term Services and Supports. I'd like to say thank you to Judy for inviting all of us actually to piggyback off of Ebony. These forums are so important. I know we have some, I was talking to Frida about some that we have at our office, but I just appreciate the invitation having us out. It connects us to you. It helps us to hear you firsthand, and that's very, very beneficial for our services to carry them through and hear your needs. I have been a social worker for over 20 years now. The years are going by quickly. I've worked in a variety of settings. I have been working with the Medicaid population going on for the last 3.5 years. And before that, I was in various components working with families and children. Actually worked in the hospice division for a little while as well. So thank you for having me.
Jen?
Well, that's a tough act to follow, right? I'm Jennifer Thomas. A lot of you in this room know me. I have a history of working in disability rights, particularly around home services and personal assistance. I joined CCAI about 3 years ago, and I in that capacity, I am sort of a patient advocate. So, and I actually report directly to Amy. So I'm happy to be here.
So we welcome you all, and we know that you're often in situations where You're working with those of us on Medicaid who are on the verge of losing our home services. We need our PAs. Does anybody have any suggestions for us when it comes to trying to strengthen our ability to keep our home services and keep our PAs? Anything you've seen in your work with us or in your work with Medicaid?
One thing, Judy, I'm sorry.
Just say your name.
So I'm Amy. But one thing that we shared, I think we were talking before, that a lot of you guys may not realize that on a quarterly basis, the MCOs are going to Springfield to discuss, with DOORS, DHS, different topics of discussion, whether it's quality or different things. So about a month ago, or actually now just maybe 3 weeks ago, was my first time going in this role. And I will tell you one thing that was very encouraging for me, that was a takeaway, is the state is really sending the message that we all need to collaborate together. It's not MCO against MCO. It's not state against MCO or you guys against MCO. So I was very encouraged to hear that message. I've been involved in this since, all of this started, and it was just a very, very positive message that I think is important for you guys to know, that you may not know that. That was our takeaway.
So you feel that the atmosphere is one of collaboration and not as much of division as
exactly.
Sometimes we think it is. And I would ask others to weigh in, but especially John, because he's our wise elder in the group with the 40 years experience. Any thoughts? Oh, sorry.
One of the things that has happened is, as we all know, the state doesn't have enough money to go around, and the federal government doesn't have enough money to go around. So they are going to make choices. And one of the choices they made was to bring large healthcare companies into the mix. So to answer the question directly, speaking for Blue Cross, we are working very closely with those home-based services that are out there. And one of our challenges is to make sure that we're working with the ones that are getting the job done and are effective.
And how do you do that?
Well, it's a combination of taking the regulations that we have and trying to translate it into common sense. So we have to be able to show with numbers that more is better, and sometimes it isn't. And if it isn't better, then what are alternatives? What are better ways to use the same money? One of the things I would say, and I don't know everybody on our panel, but most of us didn't get into this line of work to work for an insurance company.
Right.
We were social workers, we were counselors, we were nurses, we were healthcare workers. But given the situation we have, that's part of the charge that we have now, is to really look at what is working and try to put the money in that direction. And that doesn't mean taking away resources that are out there for community mental health centers or home care agencies that are public or private and are doing a good job. It's trying to find the ones that are doing a good job and make them bigger and better.
I guess from our point of view, we wonder for the large insurance companies or even the smaller ones, if, is it possible for you guys to be advocates for us within your organizations? Are you, you're trying to make the money for the corporation, and I'd like to hear from Aetna as well on this. You're a for-profit, one of the largest for-profits. Is it possible for you to be an advocate for us and our needs within your organization, or does the the bottom line and Aetna's stockholders come before us?
This is Jill. I'm with Aetna, and I, like John, am a social worker. And I saw the opportunity to join Aetna in the Medicaid line of business to make a difference. And that's where my team is too, and they're very strong advocates. And our job is to recognize the challenges and help overcome them, whatever it takes. So they're a very resourceful group. They know the resources very well. We are challenged at our leadership level to be creative, look beyond the medical model. What are some of the root causes that we could address? So you won't just see care plans that have to do with medical conditions, but we're very concerned about things like housing, having the right amount of hours, things that you need to stay independent and where you're comfortable and improving your quality of life while balancing some of the things John talked about with the dollars. But I feel very strongly that Aetna sees the value in that, and some of the other MCOs, you can tell by the caliber of team that they have here, that they have the respect for the social service element.
I really appreciate your answer. I'd like to hear from some of the others who we haven't heard from so far.
Yes, I'm Rosa with Blue Cross. Also, like our other MCO, Aetna, we are working very diligently to place a lot of the social workers, and we're actually hiring nurses that go into the community. They take care of the long-term care services for our members. And we do work with the PAs, we work with our members. We actually are the eyes in the homes, and our nurses and social workers come back and say, this member really needs the extra hours. They're in need of food, they're in need of housing. So we work together. So when we do hire our staff, we make sure that we pick the staff that has the qualities that is needed with our population that we are serving right now. And we've been pretty successful also thinking outside the box and working with not only medical issues, but also with housing and food banks, and just being available to our members with whatever they need. So.
And Ebony, any thoughts?
Yes, just to piggyback on what Roses has said, we do have care coordinators that is available to everybody, all of our members with disabilities and without, and also for mental health, we have a behavioral health department as well. And we are taking a holistic approach when it comes to all of our members. We really need to make sure that we touch bases with all their needs and that they're getting the things that they need to be met. In the as far as their home-based services with the PAs and the homemakers, we do recognize that has been an issue. Mm-hmm. We are working closely with DOORS as well. Unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot to say, but we are trying to make our voices heard, because we are advocating for the needs of our members, and we do know that they need those services. We've had issues about the EVV noncompliance and the notifications, and we too think that that's something that we need to work on in trying to improve for our members, because our ultimate goal is to make sure that our members are fully functioning and independent within their homes.
I mean, it's a win-win.
Yes.
The more functioning we are, the better you guys do your jobs. And Amy, right? So what would you like to share with us? Are you working with the MCOs, the Medicaid providers? Are you working with some of the care coordinators, the food needs of recipients of Medicaid?
So we are kind of starting our food and medicine type of work. For the last year, we've had a partnership with the Cook County Health and Hospital System and the Access Community Health Network to start screening patients for food insecurity. So when patients go to a Cook County facility, right now there are 4 clinics that are participating. The same way that when we go to the doctor, we're asked, do we smoke? Do we consume alcohol? How much alcohol do we consume? Do we use recreational drugs? Do we exercise? All of these things that impact our health. They also ask them, essentially, can you afford food? Do you have enough money every month to buy the food that you need? And if that happens, in the last year, have you run out of money before you were able to buy more food? And if that happens sometimes, or it happens a lot of the times, they're labeled as food insecure in their medical record, and that stays there every time that they come back for a visit to the clinic. In addition to having that in their medical record, they're given a referral to visit the Fresh Truck, which is a truck that we're providing to the participating clinics. They go like every other month to distribute fresh produce to people who are food insecure. Because if you have diabetes, or if you have hypertension or any other chronic illness, the food you eat is as important as the medication you take. And we know that when people can't afford food, a lot of times the first thing they stop buying is fresh fruits and vegetables, because they're more expensive and they have a shorter shelf life. But if you buy canned vegetables or you buy canned fruit, it's loaded with sugar and sodium, and that's not helpful when you have these health ailments. So people can visit the Fresh Truck. It is a client choice. So if you, if there are wax beans and you don't know how to cook wax beans and you don't really like them, then you don't have to take them. They can be there for somebody else later on, but you can get apples or oranges or peaches or bananas and cabbage, whatever the Fresh Truck offers at that visit. And I think thus far we've served a little under 4,000 people through that partnership with them. With Cook County and with Access Community Health. Not all of the clinics are doing this. Cook County's goal is to have all of the Cook County clinics doing food insecurity screenings by the end of this year. So within the year, hopefully every Cook County facility will be doing food insecurity screenings.
That's quite enlightening, and I don't think any of us knew about this program going on. So if anybody's interested in learning more about the food benefits that the Chicago Food Depository has to offer, is there ways for the other MCOs to hook up with you guys, or is that, I mean, if Aetna or CCAI or Blue Cross Blue Shield or any of the other Illini Care would want to, I mean, how would they go about it? I think screening people for food insecurity makes basic sense when you're trying to improve people's health care and ensure that they have, sustained quality health. Just asking that question. Do you have thoughts about expanding your work beyond Cook County? I mean, Chicago's a pretty big area.
So this work of food and medicine is in very early stages, and we're growing it. It also depends on our capacity too, because we certainly don't want to bite off more than we can chew and then fail. But we have spoken to some insurance companies, and we'd be happy to work with any one of you to see what the opportunities are. Another program that we offer, and I just want to make sure that everybody here is aware, is that we have a benefits outreach team, and they help people apply for SNAP benefits. A lot of people might not know that we've had a lot of depressing talk today about the state of things in Springfield, but we did have one victory last year. Starting January 1st, Illinois raised the threshold for eligibility for SNAP benefits, which is the link card. So before, it used to be 130% of the poverty line, which for a family of four was about a little under $32,000 of gross income a year. Now it's about $40,000 for a family of four in gross income. So that, having increased that, made it so that we could get about $60 million a year more in federal dollars being invested into Illinois residents for the purpose of buying food that people need. We advocated. We advocated. We spoke to legislators. They introduced the bill. They passed it, and then we needed the governor to sign it. And with the state of our executive office the way that it is, we made sure that the governor knew that this was not going to cost Illinois any money. This is all federal dollars that we were leaving on the table that could very well be invested in Illinois. So if anybody is interested in applying for SNAP, or you don't know if you might qualify, we have a SNAP team that is more than happy to help you fill out an application and conduct case management. So if there's any issue with your application, they are happy to be mediators between you and the Department of Human Services to apply for that.
Thank you. So I did have a question, Dan. I missed you for a minute.
They got people on here for $16 or $23.
There's nothing they can do about it. So,
the comment was there are people that have only coming to the monthly $16 to like $23. My point is, for somebody to try to feed themselves on that type of budget,
right?
The Greater Chicago Food Depository is a huge, huge help to those who are trying to feed themselves, who are, because I need to stop speaking in second or third person. We are experiencing something along the lines of trying to feed ourselves with healthier foods.
Right.
Being able to come to a meeting like this, we are so fortunate to meet you all. How this is going to make an effect or have any effect on the outcome of how that man over there is going to feed himself over the course of the next couple weeks. Or myself.
Right.
Well, let's be realistic. When you go to the food pantry and get some food from the food depository, you only can do that once a month. And after that, you can only get fruits and vegetables. But other foods that you may need, you have to wait to the next month. That's the way that's the way most pantries in Chicago work.
It sounds like we need another victory in the food department.
So when you talk about, I hear what you're saying, and I applaud the work that the food depository is doing. Don't get me wrong, it's an awesome thing, you know.
Okay, I gotta start wrapping things up. I did want to give Dan, because he's the only person that really didn't have a chance to weigh in. Did you have any thoughts before we take the last few questions from the audience about how you, in your role as Aetna, and Aetna can continue to be an advocate for us, even though you're working in a for-profit corporation?
I think my answer is just that the way that we would work with people with disabilities and try to help out is to have a better relationship with you. For me today, I heard it mentioned that one of the other folks on the panel said that she was enlightened, and I feel like I was enlightened today. I haven't been here prior to today, so I will be back. And I think probably the most important thing that I would say in general about what long-term services and supports case management can do is find resources for people that are in case management. So if there's a lack in one area, if you're not able to get food as often as you'd like from one resource, then there's likely other resources that can be found. And that's the goal for us, is to try to impact and make as much impact as we can and help people. So we're here with you because we want to be a part of the solution, and we're trying to be helpful. So hopefully we continue to have more impact and more involvement. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello?
I just wanted to say, too, that we heard loud and clear, at least I did, about the lack of behavioral health care and services available, and we see the cuts and we see what happens. And I think we're trying to be as innovative as we possibly can in this environment, and we're open to feedback, but we're trying to continue to stay ahead of things so that it's a crisis, and we want to be able to help. So we're trying to work with the existing community mental health centers that are here. Thresholds is one of them. They're wonderful. They do wonderful things. We're trying to reward them for the wonderful things that they're doing so they can stay here. We're also exploring some other opportunities like telepsychiatry, and we're just trying to really innovate in this trying time.
So Shelley has a question.
Shelley.
We have,
Shelley
and Tom's
Berry.
going to help me, but we're going to go to Shelley, and then we're going to go to Jennifer.
Okay, right. First of all, well, once again, you guys know my name is Shelley Berry, and we guys do appreciate you coming out here. Going back to about the food depository, when you mentioned about saying something about it's every other month, there are many people below the poverty line that have to choose. We shouldn't have to choose whether we're going to pay a bill, pay utilities, our rent, or have to buy food. In my neighborhood,
or make a choice between our medicine.
Right, or our medicines,
please, pay our rent and
pay
food.
our rent, right? Because medicine, that's a whole another subject, $300 and something. But
okay, I think
how is it? No, I'm here.
You have a question here, Shell?
Yes, I mean, what is it you're going to do? I've seen many food food depository places closed. Are you going to try to reopen these places? Are you going to try to put them in many areas, different areas, low poverty areas?
That are accessible
Yes,
to people in the
accessible.
community.
'Cause
The
something needs to
distribution
be
of the,
done.
yeah. Okay, they're not all physically accessible. I'm going to have Amy answer that a little bit later because Jennifer had her hand up for a long time, and then Amy, and then I'm going to give it to Tom because I'm not going to make any more decisions. Jennifer, go ahead. Did you have it? No, I don't. There's a microphone.
Take that up.
Jennifer, and then I'm handing the microphone over to Tom.
Okay.
The boss
Sounds
man.
good. I'm sorry the mic is reaching across the entire panel. Thank you for your help. I think I come at this from a interesting perspective, and I would say that, you know, as MCOs, we are bound by contract in what we offer and what we give to membership, whatever MCO you're with. But I would also say that, you know, we at, and I can only speak for CCAI, have kind of a unique perspective in that we offer a lot of peer support. Some of our staff come from, not only myself, but others too, come from Centers for Independent Living. So we're like on the ground, sort of fighting for making sure that everyone gets the services that they need. And we have a real commitment to peer support as well. So, and I hear a lot of what's going on in terms of behavioral health, but I'm also hearing from the panel that that's across the board. It's not just our plan, it's not just Aetna, it's not just Blue Cross, it's everywhere. So we also have some unique stakeholder forums and things that the disability community have been involved in. So, and I participate in those as well.
Okay, I want to get to one or two more
Sure.
questions. Christy, you had a question. I'm going to come to you with the mic.
Okay, my question is, this is Christy Tomaszewicz. My question is, we need more non-emergency medical transportation that would take people to and from doctor's appointments who don't have anyone to drive them to and from doctors and who don't want to use paratransit. How would that work? I mean, what happens now?
So, Christy, I heard you say you don't want to use paratransit, right? And that's non-emergent, right?
It's non-emergency that would take us to a medical appointment.
So,
Will accept all insurances. How would that go about?
well, that's a network issue, and I don't represent CCA's network by any means. I do know, though, that you know, at least at our health plan, you can call the number on the back of your insurance card. And I would say almost as soon as you have the appointment. And then our transportation folks will book the trip for you. And it is typically non-emergent. I've been on panels in the past where people have said, well, what do you do when there's an emergency and you have to take your wheelchair? I would say use 911 then, and then call your care coordinator to help you coordinate getting your chair to the hospital. Because taxis and non-emergent transit are not equipped to handle, you know, medical emergencies. But I heard you say non-medical, or rather medical non-emergent, and I can't speak for any of the other health plans, but I'm sure that the transportation benefit is something that is probably offered.
Yeah.
Sure. Hi, Christy and everyone. Blue Cross Blue Shield does have that benefit for transportation. We do use the network called MTM. They have quite a few providers that they subcontract out for transportation for non-emergency appointments. We do ask, the number is also member services on the back of your insurance cards, and you are required to call there within 72 hours of the day you need the ride. We do know that we are working with them to increase our transportation needs to increase our transportation benefit as far as how many providers that we can provide for you all, for all our members. So we will increase that.
You all to advocate for better transportation support for us
Mhm.
to the extent that you have any voice within your organizations. I think Christy brings up, like, probably just keeps getting worse for us,
Mhm.
is transportation to our health
Yeah.
care. And it just makes it very, very difficult. Our lives are highly medicalized. We sometimes spend our whole week just going back and forth to doctor's appointments. And we just really don't have the transportation support we need for our health care, to support our health care.
Okay.
Okay. Well, Tom stepped out, so he's back now. Okay, good. One quick question that
I just wanted to address the transportation issue because we use the same vendor.
hold on. I just have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I just
want to say if you have a positive experience with a vendor that we can work with to help, we'd be more than willing to make accommodations there as well.
Okay, thank you. So I'm gonna speak in behalf of myself, and I can't speak for the rest of my people here who are sitting down. But okay, I will then. I'm speaking for everyone who's sitting down. Every single time we invite the providers, we hear the same old spiel over and over and over again. Okay? And things are not the same, and things are the same way. So, what kind of commitment can we get from you guys that things are going to improve?
In terms of I think the commitment is there from the health plans in terms of we're all trying to work through this, but I want to speak to some of the providers that are actually, how do I say this, making this a little bit easier for all of us. One thing that we are doing with a DME company, and I can't disclose who it is because we're trying to get our contract solid with them, but they are a one-stop shop. So you can get your durable medical equipment, if there's repairs that need to be done, if exchanges. So it's everything. Oh, durable medical equipment. So wheelchairs, walkers, things of that nature. So I think that one thing that is helping us is that some of the providers are also hearing you, possibly through us or possibly through you. I know not everything, but there's some changes that we're being educated about that we're trying to partner up with those agencies.
Okay.
I know not everything.
Look, I'm sorry, but I gotta speak up about two things. I just gotta do this. First of all, I wasn't even gonna say anything. I wasn't gonna say anything until I heard one thing from all of you on the panel, on this panel. You were all saying, well, one of you said that you were choosing very carefully the people that you guys were hiring for different areas, okay? Now, I'd be the first to tell you that I've had the extreme pleasure of dealing with Jennifer over here as a PA coordinator of Access Living. I don't doubt that each and every one of you are capable individuals, okay? And especially seeing Jennifer on the panel, I know that there's gotta be some good going on here for a change. But I never got no letter saying, we are in consideration of these people or those people, or here's all about the Alliance of Illinois, here's all about the food depository. I've gone up to some of these soup kitchens and places like on Howard Street and on
Get to your
Wilson
point.
Avenue.
You're kind of beating around the bush.
And you know what? Not once do I ever hear about Meals on Wheels as part of your study. Katrina, where you at, Katrina? So I got a picture here. If everybody saw what the average Meals on Wheels person gets once a week, I got a picture of what I get in my refrigerator. We get one decent meal a day with 7 microwave trays, and the rest is just basically junk food, okay? And, you know, I'm sorry, but, you know, that's just not, it's not called for. It's not called for that we should eat. There's no person in this planet, like my mom or dad or friends of mine, that would ever eat like what we eat like. And then now they're trying to come to us and say that they never have to come at the exact time. They don't have to help us put the food away anymore. They don't even have to come in our apartment.
Dean, thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
I don't appreciate
Dean,
all that.
could you leave the microphone with Bob? Yeah, thank you. Do we want to give some applause to this panel, please? Thank you for coming.